The little boy's first memory was of a celebration taking place among many gods. He was blessed by a multitude of strangers who sincerely admired him, and his father looked at him with a smile. As for the mother, she suddenly threw the child aside. Her eyes filled with tears. The girl screamed that she did not want to give birth to such a child. The little girl still barely understood the meaning of the words, spoken that her mother no longer wanted to see her. But deep down, she knew what her screams meant. After this celebration, many commented that the newborn almost died at the hands of Lady Persephone. After a long time, the girl sat in a tree, near which a river flowed on which the ferryman Charon sailed. Getting down from the tree, the young goddess gave the man the opportunity to notice and greet her. She got up from the ground enthusiastically and returned his greeting, holding a large stick in her hands. The girl ran to the boat, talking to the ferryman who had been at work since that very morning, to which he replied that there is no schedule for death. Pleased with the answer, the young goddess confirmed his words, but suddenly her gaze fell upon the people sitting in the boat. Their faces were filled with despair. Some shed bitter tears, not believing that their end had come. Charon asked her if the god of the underworld, Hades, was involved in these possessions, to which the girl replied that her father was very busy at that moment. She then added that it was all because someone left their job to have fun. The man noticed that her mother, Persephone, needed some time to regain her composure. Trying to change the subject, the young goddess jumped into the boat and asked aloud if all the dead were fighters, and suggested that a war had broken out somewhere. The dead examined the little girl with interest, and some thought she was very cute, but she didn't like them at all and told them they were just chatterboxes who had no commander. The child calmly told them that they must have good physical strength. She then added that she was probably mistaken, since they died in the morning, and ended up in the underworld. The young goddess stood among the dead adults and argued whether they were really that weak. The former fighters were very angry at such impudence and said they had no equal on the battlefield. After listening to them, she explained to them again that, unfortunately, they all died not long ago. The young men got angry and began drawing swords from their scabbards to show her their power. One of the warriors swung a sharp sword directly over the head of a small child. The young goddess stopped him with a movement of her finger and told him that everyone in the underworld had been dead for a long time, and how she lived, her honor and the like were not worth a stone on the road of this world. The young man could not understand why his body stopped obeying him. The other fighters sitting in the boat also noticed that their bodies were not moving at all. With a bored look, she said that the words about glory and power in the underworld are like a dog's bark. Sailing towards the great gate, the young goddess informed them that they were now heading to the fields of asphodel, that they were her domains. The young fighters could not utter a word because her magic still affected them. Realizing this, the girl snapped her fingers, and at that very moment, the warriors could control their bodies. They could not contain their joy, so they hugged and rejoiced right in front of the young goddess. The bravest decided to find out who the unknown little one with so much power was. She smiled tenderly and announced to them that she was the daughter of death itself, the goddess of resurrection. Since time immemorial, goddesses have been mysterious and noble, so the wars did not immediately recognize her as a deity. Later, the girl introduced herself as Rukalis and added that they didn't care. With a look of shame, she explained that lately she had been losing contracts all the time. Spitting on the ground, the young goddess affirmed that, in her opinion, people had become much weaker. After her story, the girl asked them if they knew how to handle the ball, but the dead still couldn't shake off their manners. Their idea of the goddess was completely different from what they now saw before them. The carrier slowly returned, as Rukalis asked the newcomers who their parents were, and how many people they could kill at once. Elsewhere in this world, a messenger approached another goddess with a question about why her lover started working so early, to which she received the answer that the daughter of death herself had ordered him to study the divine lineage. Having crossed the gate to the fields of asphodel, the young goddess informed her pupils that whoever does not obey her will not be fed Cerberus. One of the warriors told his mistress that he saw a bright object in the distance. The girl looked in the indicated direction and explained that this was Elysium, the place where Persephone lived, where she had never been. In response to her natural question of why this happened, Rukalis cheerfully announced that they should not worry about this. Persephone was the goddess whom the king of the underworld, Hades, fell in love with at first sight. She was the same goddess who did not give him a single smile of joy. The reason for this was that the girl never wanted to be with him. Sobbing loudly, she told the god of the underworld that in his kingdom, there is a place that only heroes go to. Hades, Rukali's father, knew this place very well, which was called Elysium. Persephone only prayed to him to give someone back to her, and that no one would ever look for her again. Then, she furiously added that her daughter and he himself should not try to look for her, because she did not want to see them. The goddess of pain and anxiety, Oises, said that they should not have given Rukali's a truce. And she was worried that the girl was heading to Tartarus. The goddess of discord, Eris, tried to convey to her friend Oises that she was exploring something to follow her. In response, the girl was indignant and said that the daughter of the god of the underworld had never heard them before. Then they asked for help from the god of eternal darkness, Erebus, who had previously listened to their conversation in silence. Initially, all the gods lived in golden palaces, and each found their own entertainment. But when Rukali's was born, they all gathered in one place and waited for her. Sitting at the table, Erebus said that at this age children can behave this way. And Oises explained to him that no god would smash skulls and play with Cerberus's knotted tail. An old man said that at his age, Hermes stole a herd of cows from Apollo. Another god reasoned that even compared to Hermes this was too much. His words were confirmed by the goddess of pain. Their dialogue was interrupted by a boy, who suddenly burst in asking if they were talking about him. Before them appeared a young man with a winged helmet, whose name was Hermes, the god of news. The boy cheerfully said that it had been a while since he brought golden chairs at the request of the daughter of the god of the underworld. Then he pulled a huge bag from behind his back. While the others looked on bewildered, Hermes told them that the girl personally chose the materials and that it was a small bribe so they wouldn't fight too much. He added that she put effort into it, and the gods admired the new object with delight. Oises said that Tartarus is so deep that even Zeus finds it difficult to deal with some of its inhabitants. She said that this time they could not be lenient with her and that they should scold her well. Heading to a forbidden place, the girl reasoned that the gods should have received their gift. With a satisfied smile, she cheerfully said that forbidden fruit is always sweet. At that very moment, the young goddess was already in Tartarus, at the bottom of the underworld, where she sent those who angered the gods. Tantalus, Sisyphus, Thyestes, Ixion, and other great titans constantly lived there. There were few inhabitants in Tartarus, and their names could be counted on the fingers of one hand. But the daughter of the god of the underworld, personally, knew only a few of them, who did not let her in. One of the residents told her that the goddess Oises said that a little goddess like her would be torn apart inside with one finger. The girl never paid attention to empty intimidation. It always went in one ear and out the other. Unexpectedly, she encountered a withered man who pitifully asked her for water. This man was Tantalus, one of the Titans, who made soup for his son and served it to the gods, so that they could not stop eating or drinking until death. The young goddess mockingly showed him a water skin and asked if he was very thirsty. The withered Titan was incredibly happy for such generosity and extended his hands towards the water, while thanking the savior. But Rukali's simply threw the life-giving water on the ground, because God's punishment is God's, because they are not so supportive as to forgive everyone who challenged them. There was no one in this realm who would give him water, but there were much more reckless people there. And great, the next point of her campaign was a visit to Sisyphus, about whom she asked about his progress. She watched him as he tried to lift a huge, heavy rock up the mountain. This Titan deceived Zeus, and even the god of death, because he wanted to live another life. The girl told him that as soon as he rolled a stone up the mountain, it would immediately roll back down. The guy was condemned to constantly roll a rock up a mountain where he could not stay. After watching until the stone rolled down the mountain, the young goddess cheerfully announced that she had warned him. The sweaty boy told her that he had already told her many times that this was not a place for little goddesses. In response, the girl said that she had already told him many times that this was a useless matter. Long before this, the god of the underworld sat on the throne and asked Thanatos how the man dared to deceive the gods, and why he didn't control him. The king of the underworld, the god of the afterlife, Hades, looked at his pupil with disgust. The servant bowed his head and said that he was very ashamed and asked his master to forgive him. Lifting his head, he assured God that he was fulfilling his promise that such a thing would not happen again. He then severely added that the offender would pay for everything for trying to deceive the gods. Hades' daughter observed all this, wondering why this man defied the gods. Now she ran after the intruder, whose name was Sisyphus, and asked him why he didn't greet her, and just left. As she followed him along the cliff, the girl wondered if he really wanted to take a break. The martyr replied sadly and calmly that this was the essence of his punishment. Turning to her, the boy was surprised and asked if she really had nothing else to do. Rukalis cheerfully replied that she was still very young, so she was free to do whatever she wanted. Sisyphus invited her to go home and do something else, to which he heard in response that this was her home. His head ached from so much pressure from the small and young goddess, and he covered his face with his hand. He quickly turned around and tried to leave her, but the daughter of the god of the underworld stopped him by asking if he was leaving already. Seeing the martyr heading towards his prison, she began to shout at him to rest a little longer. Seeing that this did not stop him, she shouted at the top of her lungs that she liked talking to him. She remembered an incident where she accidentally witnessed Zeus torturing a girl. Watching them from behind the rock, Sisyphus could only hear the poor girl's pitiful pleas. Therefore, he now calmly told the young goddess that all gods are always stubborn. Returning to that terrible day, he remembered how his mother was looking for her daughter Aegina. A woman was crying profusely looking for her lost girl when she accidentally saw Sisyphus. The martyr explained to Hades' daughter that everything would be as they wished. The gods care about people only to show off. He remembered how Zeus shouted that his tongue was dislocated because he decided to deceive him. Observing God's anger, the man heard words that made him truly believe that people like him were capable of resisting God's will. Now, communicating with the little goddess, Sisyphus explained to her that people like her disgust him. They looked at each other with interest for a long time, without saying a word. Rukalis broke the silence by asking him what specifically he didn't like. The martyr angrily said that he had just told her about it, to which he received a counter-question. Does she really not inspire admiration and surprise in him? The girl looked at him stoically, and after a while invited him to bow before her. People sacrificed various animals to worship certain gods. The young goddess asked him if he had ever thought about why people kill their livestock. The guy didn't answer her. He just looked away to recall the day of his imprisonment. Hades tells him that Zeus ordered him to deal with him, so he is sending him to rot in Tartarus until the end of time. At first the intruder was ashamed, but then a smile of joy appeared on his face. Returning from his memories, Sisyphus told her that he had never bowed before God, because everything will turn into punishment only when a person begins to fear God. The young goddess told him that in this way he would never realize his sin. She then added that it could not be said of him that he was just an ordinary person and common. Turning around, the girl returned and said she would play with this stone for the rest of her days. Turning sharply towards him, she smiled sincerely and said that this was not bad for her. Seeing her gradually moving away from him, Sisyphus took a deep breath. He scratched his head and said aloud that nothing could be done against the joy of children. The girl didn't even think about leaving, so as soon as he started climbing the mountain again, she immediately ran to him and continued talking. To her questions about family, the young goddess found many answers that no one would care about her. Rukalis said that although Adonis is only one person, his mother is crazy about him. Persephone was in a remote place with her beloved Adonis. Persephone and Adonis were in the Elysian fields, where little fairies flew. The lovers lay among the flowers, enjoying each other, because that was the place where brave heroes ended up. Rukalis' mother kindly told her that he was everything to her, in return for asking what she meant to him. She added that if it weren't for Aphrodite, they could always be together. Sisyphus asked Hades' daughter how her mother could leave her husband and be different, to which she heard in response that gods often become attached to people they like. The martyr replied that this was terrible, and the girl told him not to try to make her understand human feelings. Covering his face with his hand, the guy tried to hide his feelings, and the young goddess shouted that she liked his freedom. He told her that she simply did not understand what loneliness was, and that was why she spoke of freedom. Looking at her with contempt, Sisyphus explained to her that no one would try to convince her otherwise. After a short pause, the guy added that the reason for this was that she was a goddess. After all, resting in the shade of the trees, leaning against a stump, the girl angrily said that they would look at him later. Hermes approached her and asked if people were right, and if she really went to Tartarus. Seeing him, she ran cheerfully to the meeting and asked if he had brought the golden chairs. Hearing an affirmative answer, the young goddess sat on a stump and asked how angry they were. But in response, she heard that he didn't know, so he presented her with a very small one. Then God knows, sarcastically, he asked when she would finally grow up. The girl was indignant because she was not small at all, but he said she was quite small. Hermes jokingly added that, besides her, only Eros was so small. Usually, gods develop completely in a week or a month, but among them, there were only two who could not grow. This pair consisted of Rukales and Eros, who constantly competed over which of them had grown. Eros has golden arrows that can awaken love, and he also had lead arrows that awaken hatred. More recently, Aphrodite, the goddess of love, watched Psyche with the help of a magic mirror. She sat on the sofa in the arms of a handsome man and told him that everyone should open their eyes, because she was much more beautiful than the girl in the mirror. Then she called her son Eros, who immediately ran to her at full speed. The beautiful goddess asked him if he knew where a girl named Psyche lived. Having received an affirmative answer, she asked him to fulfill her mother's small request: make Psyche fall in love with the most repulsive person in the world. Rukales remembered that Eros, upon seeing the girl, drooled and pierced himself with his own arrow. Hermes assured her that the boy was impressed by her beauty, to which he heard confirmation from Hades' daughter. Then, God knows energetically, he asked what the main point of this story was. The girl suggested that Persephone's beauty was to blame, to which she heard in response that she had misunderstood. She told him that, having gone on her mother's mission, the son of Aphrodite was amazed and fulfilled his plan. Eros, impressed by Psyche's beauty, pierced himself with a golden arrow and immediately grew. Then Hermes sincerely asked if Rukales knew what made the gods grow. Remembering that story, the young goddess concluded that gods grow when they fall in love. God Knows summarized the story by saying that Eros grew when he fell in love with Psyche, so she too will only grow when she falls in love with someone. He added that usually, gods immediately understand what love is, implying that she had no idea about it. The girl became furious and loudly said that she also had an idea about this, and that she also had a loved one. Hermes was very surprised by this news and asked her who she was talking about. The bright-eyed young goddess declared that she loved her father with all her heart. Realizing that she did not know the subject of their dialogue, the guy said that it was platonic love. Rukales cheerfully declared that she would marry the god of the underworld. Covering his face with his hand, he wished her luck in this, calling her his niece. The girl said that her mother has Adonis, so her father is completely free. Her speech was interrupted by a sharp female voice, which made Hermes and Rukales turn around. Oisi was heading towards them, making her way through the thicket of bushes and trees, picking up all the holes on the path. Ada's daughter asked why she found her halfway if she received a golden chair. The goddess said that Erebus said that if she didn't come immediately, he would turn her butt into a trident. The young goddess was seriously afraid of such a fate, and her uncle Hermes only covered his face with his hand. Rukales shouted loudly, asking why he decided to do this, to which she heard in response that she had gone to Tartarus of her own free will. God Knows, he saw how the goddess of pain and anxiety dragged a girl behind her and told her that Erebus was already old and did not seek compromises. Hermes remembered that after his birth, Eros constantly saw his mother having fun with different men, and Rukales had everything exactly the same. She saw love only in the form of capture and brute force. Hades' daughter was indignant that, having received a golden chair made by Hephaestus himself, everyone turned a blind eye to her misdeeds. Walking away from them, the guy kept thinking about how people like them knew what love was. At that moment, the girl tried to prove to Oises that they really didn't understand. But the goddess was inaccessible. Elsewhere in the world, two novices approached Zeus and told him that they needed to start preparations. At the same time, Oasis decided to lecture the young goddess, telling her that the initiation ceremony would take place in a couple of days. The girl covered her ears with her fingers, while the goddess asked her why she went where she was asked not to meddle. The woman tearfully said that she was very worried about her, while Erebus silently watched their conversation. He skillfully pretended not to notice anything and shamelessly sat on the chair Rukales had given him. Later, the young goddess complained to the ferryman that the older man used to stop scolding Oises. But this time, tactfully, he did not interfere. He just asked her if that was the reason she was sailing with him on a boat, to which he received an affirmative answer. Then, Karen decided to ask her if he had understood correctly that Hephaestus made the golden chairs. The girl calmly affirmed that, since he asked about it, she also had something for him. The ferryman blushed with shame, not believing that she had also prepared a gift for him. He added that as soon as they returned he would show him everything, and he thought that the hereditary owner of gold and jewels had prepared a gift for him. Then the man asked if her gift was precious stone jewelry. The girl, surprised, replied how he could find out about this and offered to swim faster. Hearing her words, Karen immediately began to row to the shore at lightning speed to quickly receive his gift. While enjoying the exciting ride, Rukalis cheerfully said that she owed him a lot all this time. After which, she said that she had ordered him to make something incomparable, even with a golden chair. At her words, the guide began to row even harder, so that the boat almost sank into the water. Upon reaching the shore, Hades' daughter cheerfully showed him a gift, a new golden boat. The girl said that the whole boat was made of pure gold, and that the seats were inlaid with diamonds and golden topazes. Rukalis said that there was a figurehead hanging in front of the boat, made in her image. Looking at her mysterious face, the young goddess asked him if he liked her idea. Karen imagined that if the dead saw him ragged and in a golden boat, it would not scare them at all. It seemed to him that many would think that all this looked terribly expensive, which would cause heated arguments about gold. Seeing how happy he was, the man could not find words to somehow explain his thoughts to her. Gathering courage, he said that he was deeply grateful, but that he could not use it, since the boat was very heavy and would not carry many dead people. Deciding to change the subject, the ferryman asked her how her conversation with Hermes went. The young goddess sternly told him that her uncle had told her that she did not know what love was. She clenched her fists and firmly said that she could not agree with this, because she was a goddess full of love. The girl loved her father, who senselessly loved his wife, and her mother, who flirted with a man. Rukalis also did not forget the stupid dead and the little fairies, the titans Tantalus and Sisyphus, as well as Cerberus. Having finished listing all the creatures she knew, the daughter of Hades naively said that she even loved Karen. The man was a little confused and asked her if he should take her words as a compliment or not. Not hearing his question, the young goddess said that she had said more than once that she hated her mother. She continued talking about how irresponsible she is and how she falls in love with handsome young men. Finishing her thought, the girl said that she did not consider her so bad, but rather, on the contrary, it seemed to her that she had trouble hating her. Having fully stated her assumption, Rukalis almost smiled and asked him if she had convinced him. Then, the man asked her if she really didn't remember anything that happened a couple of years ago. When Psyche came to the underworld several years ago, she said that she came on behalf of Aphrodite to borrow some beauty from Lady Persephone. The girl met a young goddess who told her that she looked much more beautiful than her mother. The girl was very surprised by the fact that the beautiful stranger wanted to borrow even more beauty. The ferryman reminded her that instead of her beauty, Persephone put a mortal dream in the box. The hero of the people, Pirithous, loudly declared that he wanted Persephone to become his wife. Karen said that the lady took this as mockery, and Ada's daughter said that her mother had victim syndrome. The man said that his great dream was to finally see her grow up. Rukalis said that she is talking about that again, but she has known what love is for a long time. Then she heard him say that love is a feeling close to sympathy. The man explained that love is not coercion and control, but the ability to go back in time. The young goddess asked in surprise where love is in this, and then added that sometimes he says things that are too difficult. At the same time, Thanatos observed a strange sight of many drunken women lying in the middle of the forest. A vein of indignation appeared on his face, and he loudly said that suddenly everything had become too quiet. At that moment, the girls were hugging, singing, and dancing, while continuing to drink intoxicating drinks. The god of death looked at them with disgust and said to himself that he had done it again. Without forgetting her pupils, the young goddess went to witness the duel. Two young men argued that there was no one who didn't know about Thracian Erythros, and the second replied to him so that his opponent would not speak in vain. The girl observed everything that happened from the side and had a pleasant conversation with the servant. She was fascinated by the fact that they fought all their lives, and even after death, they continued to brandish their swords. The boy asked who she would bet on this time, to which he heard in response that Hades' daughter chooses Telsia. She added that although she did not show her face, her skills were quite good. Deciding that appearance was very important to her, the servant said he would bet on the underworld baby. The god of death Thanatos entered the ring, and the young goddess immediately asked why she hadn't seen him in so long. The girl had already clung to the man who approached them, who told her that he had finally found the culprit. Seeing a golden boat behind her, the boy tiredly lay down inside and closed his eyes. Breaking the silence, he asked if it was the same golden boat, to which he received an affirmative answer. The young goddess told him that the ferryman had refused her gift, so she took him to this forest to sit. Trying to distinguish the figure on the bow of the boat, the god of death calmly told her that this was sad news, but that nothing could be done about it. Leaning higher, he told her that the boat was quite comfortable, to which the girl replied that she thought so too. He told her that many people said that she was secretly taking the dead away. Rukalis, in turn, denied the rumors and said that she returned them later. Lying on the boy, she continued to hear that the underworld also has its own orders and laws, so Karen always transports the dead across the river Styx in his boat, after which they must appear before the court of God. He added that during the trial all the sins a person committed in life are considered, and whether he will receive punishment for them, after which his work to return the soul to earth begins. In response to her statement that she knew this very well, Thanatos lightly hit her on the head with his fist, and said that her behavior spoke absolutely the opposite. The boy reminded her that her initiation ceremony would soon take place on Olympus. Once the girl accepts the powers of resurrection, she will have to perform important work in the underworld. The god of death advised her not to behave like this even as a joke, and she cheerfully agreed with him. He said that she should not visit Tartarus, to which the girl replied that suddenly there was a lot of noise downstairs. Hearing her words, Thanatos quickly realized that the young goddess was trying to change the subject. Looking at her, he saw that Rukalis was not listening to him at all, but was only watching the young girls dance. She was interested to know why so many young women were dying in a row. Then she asked if they had killed themselves because they felt something for the same man. The boy became very tense at her words, and the girl realized that she should not have asked that question. He told her that this could have happened because of Dionysus. The girls got drunk and drowned in the river. The god of death sinisterly said that it was difficult to count how many people died drunk. Having left the situation behind, Thanatos sighed deeply and said that it was better not to approach them, because they were fanatics of Dionysus. The girl asked why the girls were called fanatics. Because the servants of the gods are usually called priests. She thought for a while and calmly said that these ladies were attracted by Dionysus himself, after which she added that they were caught in his net because of their promiscuity. Rukalis listened attentively and quietly summarized his words that they died for fun. She remembered the moment when Hermes asked her if she really took the dead away. The young goddess easily replied that she hoped she could row as well as Karen, but her words that she scared them a lot. The girl said that these illusions also did many bad things. Hermes informed her that even in this case, people need to be loved and cared for. People respected and revered the gods, so the gods often had to take care of them. Unexpectedly, Hermes invited her to go to the human world because the sun shines there. Beautiful girls, food, and flowers. Rukalis said that in the human world, all good things must come to an end someday. So she liked the underworld, to which he replied that this world could not fill her soul. Every day, the gods told her to love and care for others. But observing the drunken girls, Hades' daughter realized that the gods were very different from what she thought of them. Getting off the boat, the god of death told her that the gods are not as ideal as she thinks. She remembered the words that they do everything as they want, as they decide, and care about people only to show off. Then she told Thanatos that his words were very similar to those of one of her dead friends. The day of the initiation ceremony arrived. The goddess Oises did not know how to style her hair best. The other gods advised her to calm down, to which she replied that it was not something that could be easily fixed. She said that since her pupil drank Hera's mother's milk, this was her first ascent to Olympus. So everything had to be perfect. The god of ridicule, Mom asked with interest if they were sure that nothing would happen. It was the first time the girl saw Thanatos so displeased with something. He could not accept the fact that Dionysus killed his fans for fun, because grace is given to those who worship them, and those who defy them are punished. She remembered Sisyphus's words, that no one would tell her she was wrong because she was a goddess. The young goddess decided that if she asked Oises or anyone else about this, the Tonys would simply try to silence it. She decided that such a situation did not suit her, and lost in her thoughts, she did not hear the servants passing by. Rukalis firmly decided that it was worth finding out everything herself from the Titan Sisyphus. 2 servants followed her and whispered very loudly. Unable to bear it, she turned to them and shouted where they were going, to which she heard in response that they were simply supporting her. When she met Sisyphus, he seemed quite ignorant to her. For a long time, she watched him lift the stone up the mountain day after day. The guy quickly got used to her, but he never stopped being surprised that she was visiting him. One day, the girl naively asked him how long he would do this. She thought he was ridiculous for his constant repetition of meaningless actions. Rukalis visited him constantly, and wondered if all this was worth it as a simple mockery of the gods. He seemed like a pathetic fool to her when the stone was back at the foot of the mountain. One day, Sisyphus told her that she had atypical behavior for a goddess, to which she replied that, unlike him, she was free. To her question about what he was trying to understand, the guy replied that he was not given the ability to comprehend the divine essence. So he asked her. For a moment, the guy did not finish the sentence. He just laughed convulsively and heartily. The girl looked at him with interest, trying to understand if he had finally gone mad. With joy in his voice, he pointed out to her that the top of the mountain had worn away after so many years. Covering her eyes with her hand to protect herself from the sun, the young goddess noticed that the mountain was indeed worn like a fingernail. The guy said that very little was left and that she could throw a stone at him. Rukalis looked at him confused, trying to understand why he needed this. Sisyphus, always shouting in despair, explained to her that he had discovered that it was possible to overcome even divine punishment. Now there was a sparkle in his eyes and he smiled, telling her that he was not afraid of the gods at all. Returning from Tartarus, Hades' daughter was indignant and told herself how stupid her face was, and she even hummed to herself. Stopping briefly, she realized that for a long time she had been tormented by the question of why they sent Sisyphus to Tartarus. She saw him very often, but never once gathered the courage to ask him. Rukalis simply thought in general that this guy had neglected the kindness of the gods. Realizing that she would not be able to find out anything until she met him, the girl decided to interrogate him at the first meeting. Therefore now, heading to a forbidden place, she hoped that he would tell her about Dionysus and about love. The martyr always had something to tell her, which is why she went to him. Upon reaching that very mountain, the young goddess did not immediately realize that she could not hear any sound. She loudly wondered if Tantalus should have appeared before her at normal times. The girl realized with horror that she saw absolutely nothing but an ever-blackening darkness. After staying for a while, she decided that she had walked too far, where she had never been before. She thought that if she accidentally took the wrong path, then she should simply return. Ada's daughter was not looking for new thrills and diligently tried to calm down. Seeing a light in the distance, she headed straight towards it, hoping that this would be her last hope. Suddenly, Rukalis heard many voices that thought she was Hades. They quickly changed their minds, sensing the smell of death from the young goddess. The voices said that they had not seen the little goddesses for a long time and decided that they would have fun with her. A terrifying gaze was directed at the girl from hundreds of empty sockets that smelled of death. The young goddess could not move. Tears appeared in her eyes because Anna quickly guessed what kind of creature it was. A long time ago, Zeus's grandfather, Uranus, saw the hecaton chairs that Gaia gave birth to. He was horrified to see such ugly creatures screaming at their mother to save them. The grandfather threw them to the bottom of Tartarus. Zeus tried to bring them out into the middle world, but, fearing the consequences, hid them again. Now the young goddess begged for help, making a promise to the void that she would never do dangerous things without permission again. She begged through tears and said that she would never cross the gates of Tartarus again, and that she would stop making fun of him. Closing her eyes in anticipation of death, Hades' daughter shed bitter tears and begged at least someone to save her at least once. Hearing a strange sound, the girl did not dare to open her eyes immediately, but after regaining control, she saw her savior in front of her. The young man told her that he hoped she would keep her promise. The terrible creature asked why she had come to them and how she ended up here. Thanatos stood proudly in front of her and said that she does not always listen to what others tell her. The creature trembled and constantly repeated that the god of death had come to them, to which the guy told the girl that he would talk to her later. Kneeling and with her hands raised, his daughter Ada listened attentively as she was reprimanded by her savior, who said that more than once they had told her not to go to a forbidden place. He was angry and shouted loudly that she could not imagine what would have happened to her if he had not decided to check if she had really gone there. The guy kept saying that she had no idea how worried everyone was. Concluding his speech, he added that from now on she was forbidden to enter Tartarus, as well as going anywhere without permission and causing mischief. The girl tried to challenge him, but the savior threateningly interrupted her attempt and asked her if she understood or not. Rukalis tried to contradict him again, but came to her senses in time and decided to submit to fate. The young goddess bowed her head, asked for forgiveness, and said that she understood everything. Calmed by her humble response, the guy sighed deeply, trying to believe that she would really not do something like that again. When he saved her, the god of death told the creature that the little goddess was Hades' daughter. The Hecatoncheires could anger the god of the underworld, and therefore remain trapped in Tartarus forever. The creature menacingly chanted that she was lying, and did not believe him at all. They loudly asked how the daughter of the god of the underworld could end up in Tartarus. The savior calmly told the girl that this seemed strange, not only to him, but even to a creature from the bottom of Tartarus. Drawing his sword, he asked them if they really thought he intended to lie to them. Cutting them with his sword, the god of death looked at them cruelly and informed them that they would regret their words. Being safe, he told the young goddess that although everything ended well, she should try to be more responsible in the future. He added that everyone was very scared, and Oises clung to her clothes so tightly that she tore them. Taking 3 feathers from his pocket, the guy showed them to the girl and told her that the goddess also took them out. The guy importantly announced that now he knows that he should not do hasty things. She decided for herself that she needed to stop going to the forbidden place for a while, because she had never seen Thanatos so angry before. The girl stopped listening to him, thinking only that she would be obedient first. Getting up from the ground, the god of death called her so that the young goddess would swear an oath to him. He calmly explained to her that it was necessary to swear an oath on the river Styx, to which Rukalis' eyes widened. Noticing the change in her face, Thanatos mockingly asked her if she really thought she would just cry. And that would be the end of it. Heading to the river, he spoke about how this oath cannot be broken. Otherwise, the culprit will fall asleep for 9 years, after which he will be expelled from Olympus for 9 years. After the story, he took her to the river and made her swear never to enter Tartarus again. The young goddess asked him how she would fulfill her divine duty if she could not enter the forbidden place, to which he replied that when she grew up, it would not matter to her. She loudly declared that if something happened in the underworld, she would have no choice but to enter Tartarus. The guy said that if this happens, then, of course, she will be able to enter the forbidden place. Looking at her angrily, he sternly said that such an incident was unlikely to ever happen. Having resigned herself to the inevitable, the girl obediently headed towards the river, under the cheerful supervision of her savior. After the oath, the young goddess went to her home, where in the morning she was surrounded by goddesses. It seemed to them that something was wrong with the face of Hades' daughter. Oises said that she had lost weight, and the others thought she was bloated. Since the day Rukalis was born, not a single day had passed when they had the opportunity to rest a little. Eris said that they told her that the girl met Dionysus's fanatics. The 3 decided that their little lady had participated in one of the festivities. Another god approached them and told them that Dionysus's festivals were famous for their madness. His followers went mad en masse or turned into pigs for slaughter. The god of dreams, Waneiros, added that there was nowhere to put this madness, but someone noticed that his followers were again having terrible fun in their dreams. Oasis agreed, and Eris reasoned that she had lived so long, but had never returned to normal. The guy understood that the lower gods died of madness, and although he was above this, he found the very fact of such a thing amusing. In dreams, everyone runs away from a boring life in which they only want to die, because that was the only entertainment. Sometimes dreams did not bring the desired relaxation, but on the contrary, they scared me even more. The god of dreams often watched people wake up horrified in the middle of the night, without understanding how they could dream such a thing. He used to enjoy the screams of people waking up from nightmares, but now he was also tired of it. Even among the highest gods, those who really knew how to have fun could be counted on the fingers of one hand, including Zeus, who scatters seeds everywhere, and Artemis, who destroys animals. The god of dreams counted himself among them, believing that he was worse than the military tacticians who incited people to battle. The immortality of the body does not help to keep God sane, which is why many people die because of the deity. Waneiros continued to live because he could not die. He lived a life where he gave up, but he couldn't stop it. His thoughts were interrupted by Oises, who shouted at him to come to her as soon as possible. At the end of all this, he met the very young daughter of Hades, who looked at him with genuine interest. Oises introduced Rukalis to him and said that she was a real darling, and that the god of the underworld himself had entrusted her to her. He remembered the day the girl learned to walk well, and Eris offered to take her for a plane ride. A child who recently croaked learned to move so fast after a few days that no one could keep up with him. Worried, several years passed quickly in a moment. The god of dreams was equally afraid of this, and at the same time rejoiced. Now, sitting by her bed, he reasoned that when she grew up, the immortal body would also absorb her fragile soul. And for her, there would be a future as boring as a white ceiling. Erebus approached him, placed his hand on his shoulder, and calmly told him that all children grow up, and they cannot go against the passage of time. Then he took the young goddess by the cheek, and added that his little mischief-maker could not live without knowing the world outside the underworld. Oneirose confirmed his words, but clarified that he would like her to stay with them longer. After the Tartarus incident, the god's guardianship only intensified, so Oises declared that she would walk with her all day. Eris suggested another option, tapping the phone of the little street kid. The girl listened in horror, as they wanted to allow her out only once a month. Unable to bear the pressure, Rucalis tried to escape her guardians. The daughter of Hades immediately hid among the reeds near the river Styx, while everyone else frantically tried to find her. She whispered that her nannies were crazy because she already lived a monotonous life. She was watched by the reed fairies, who sincerely did not understand why she constantly hid in their possessions. The girl's gaze fell upon the handsome young man, and the first thing she thought was that he was a narcissist. But then she remembered that she would have had lilac hair then. The boy turned his gaze towards the girl sitting among the reeds, which greatly embarrassed her. Realizing she had already given herself away, Rucali headed straight for him, trying to justify her behavior. Approaching him, the daughter of Hades blurted out at lightning speed that, in her opinion, he was very handsome. She greatly confused the stranger, which made him start stumbling over his own words. Having composed himself, the blonde boy told her that this was a compliment to him from the goddess herself. The young goddess told him that she hadn't seen any dead people like him nearby, and also asked how he knew who she was. Suddenly, she realized that the name that had come up in the conversation about Persephone contained golden hair and bright, light eyes the color of the sea. The girl said sternly that there is only one person from whom the smell of a living person emanates. After examining him carefully, she thoughtfully asked if he was really the same Adonis. The boy smiled affectionately and cheerfully greeted the goddess in front of him. Adonis is the favorite concubine of Persephone and the beauties whom Aphrodite favors. The goddess of beauty appealed to the god of the underworld to allow her to be with Adonis. She said that even if he died, she could bring him back to life. Her request was interrupted by Persephone herself, who brazenly pushed her aside right in front of Hades. The mother of the goddess of rebirth shouted that Adonis was already dead, so she asked not to take away her only joy. A serious argument began before the god of the underworld about what to do with the unfortunate man's life. Aphrodite grabbed Persephone by the hair and told her that if Hades hadn't been there, she would have destroyed her long ago. After a while, the god of the underworld informed them that the man would live 6 months on Earth, and the remaining 6 months in the underworld. In his world, Adonis was widely known as the man who could capture the hearts of 2 goddesses at will. Under the cover of darkness, the object of discord tempts Persephone with his sweet speeches. Now, standing in front of the little goddess, he said that she had probably heard many rumors about him, so he asked her to hit him with all her heart. The girl thought that the boy in front of her was completely detached from the rumors surrounding him. She didn't believe that the boy could capture the hearts of 2 goddesses just with his cute face. The young goddess explained that she had no reason to hit him because it was the first time she had seen him. She realized she imagined him as a vile seducer, judging by the fact that they called him the one who plays with 2 goddesses. Rucalis always thought that at the first meeting, she would immediately curse him. She wanted to slap him or hit him on the head, but at that moment, the only daughter of Hades realized that the rumor could not really be trusted. Walking with a boy along the river, she asked him why he wandered alone in the underworld, to which she heard in response that he just wanted to look at this realm. He added that he didn't have much time left before returning to the realm of the living. The girl asked him where he had been in the underworld for such a short time. Adonis told her that when he left Elysian, he first went to the river. The young goddess couldn't believe that during so many years in the underworld, he had only seen Elysian and the river Styx. She said she had heard that her mother wouldn't let him go even for a second, but she never thought it would be to this extent. The girl told him that there was much to see in the underworld. Having completely fallen, Rukalis quietly said that it couldn't be that he hadn't seen the Golden Palace or Cerberus, and hadn't even tried to play rib-snatching with the skeletons. Adonis told her that, even if only a little, she spoke to him. From his words, the young goddess thought his manners were very good, and he seemed much better than she thought. The boy tried to ask her something, but didn't know where to start. The daughter of Hades took matters into her own hands, and tactfully asked him if she had understood correctly that it was his first time out. She held out her hand to him and told him she would show him all the places in the underworld especially for him. Sitting in the boat, the girl told him about the light, the only entrance connecting the world of the living, and the realm of the dead, which was located at Cape Tainaran in the region of Sparta. Then she spoke about how if you go up the River of Souls, you can see the golden palace of the goddess Styx. After which she reported that sailing a little further by boat, one can reach the Supreme Court, and even see Cerberus there. Karen interrupted her story about the realm of the dead and asked who his companion was. He looked at them sternly and said that after the incident with Orpheus, he did not carry living people in his boat. The ferryman was punished because, succumbing to Orpheus's music, he carried him in a boat. The young goddess cheerfully announced that she knew her companion very well, because it was Adonis. The man looked closely at the stranger and asked if this was the Adonis he knew. Karen suddenly became worried and asked him to say that he had simply misheard. The embarrassed girl said that it was the same boy with whom her mother had a close relationship. Rukalis added that the boy turned out to be much kinder than she imagined. She said mockingly that her new acquaintance constantly called her goddess. Examining the boy from head to toe, the man realized how handsome the two goddesses could not share, appreciating him because he shared the bed with them and made them happy. Observing the pleased young goddess, Karen decided that since he could sleep with two goddesses, he knew exactly how to treat the opposite sex. His thoughts were interrupted by a loud crack of wood, and upon waking, he saw a broken oar in his hands. When the daughter of Hades asked why this was happening, he replied that he had been old for a long time. Rukalis suggested that he replace the oar with a new golden one, and then decided to tell this wonderful story to her new acquaintance. The ferryman continued to watch the children, thinking that it was always difficult because of Persephone. After waiting until they finished talking, he asked if the girl had really brought Adonis without permission, because her mother obviously wouldn't have approved. The young goddess laughed maliciously, telling him that she wasn't foolish, but suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation. Jumping into the boat, the daughter of Ada said she knew they could take him to the river. Then she reasoned about how they needed to bring him back in time, but then asked why her mother had let him go. Very worried about her situation, Rukalis anxiously asked Adonis who he had gone for a walk with. The surprised blonde man told her that he had left Elysian in peace. After this, he unexpectedly added that he had to wait by the river until the goddess reunited. Smiling sweetly, Adonis told them that he was thinking about what Lady Persephone allowed them to do. The girl began to scream frantically that he knew perfectly well what kind of relationship they had, so her mother couldn't allow him to do this. Trying to calm down, the young goddess reasoned that their excursion was a failure, because the goddess wouldn't let him go like that. Her audacity was interrupted by the confident voice of a boy who asked her not to worry too much. He said that the lady now regrets her instead of hating her, so she doesn't come close. Then he calmly added that if she spoke to her, her mother would definitely understand everything. In response to this statement, Rukalis grabbed the boat and burst out laughing. The boy looked at her surprised and didn't understand at all why she had that reaction. Wiping the tears from her eyes that arose from laughter, the young goddess asked again if she wasn't coming close because she felt sorry for him. Approaching Adonis, she asked him with a mysterious look if he really thought so. Persephone's lover remembered well how tears ran every night before bed. She said she never wanted this, and that everything around her was not what she longed for. Then she fell helplessly and wondered what to do. She remembered that goddess who shed so many tears because she couldn't love her daughter. Now the boy sincerely didn't understand how the one who had once been so vulnerable in front of him now turned out to be very cruel. Persephone furiously squeezed Rukalis' throat with her hands, so tightly that the poor girl could only grunt. Ada's daughter always thought it was very difficult for her mother, because on her birthday she wanted to throw her little daughter into the river. The little goddess thought she would never forget this wild desire to kill her. And her words, a few minutes before her mother grabbed her, the girl was sitting in a boat, and told her companion that she liked him very much, because he was smart and listened to her enthusiastically. And he was also handsome. Then she added that she wanted him to stop saying inappropriate things, and that they should see each other more often. As they approached the shore, they heard many voices of little fairies calling them. After getting ashore, the fairies began to carefully examine Adonis, and at the same time asked him if he was injured. Persephone, furious, emerged from the thicket and was greeted by her daughter, who told her that they hadn't seen each other in many years. The goddess suddenly raised her hand, looked angrily at Rucalis, and called her a little insect. Then, her hand struck the cheek of the daughter of Hades with all its might, but the girl didn't even try to move away. She wanted the boy to see everything with his own eyes, so she didn't stop her mother from hitting her. Persephone grabbed the little goddess by the clothes and shouted that she and Hades were very similar. The goddess added that the girl does the same thing. When she likes someone, she tries to lay her hands on them. Continue talking about how, if something wants to leave, then he and his father forcibly tie him, while recalling his conversation with Hades. One day, he asked her if she liked freedom of movement, to which she thought he was just making fun of her. She was abruptly interrupted by Karen, approaching from behind, who gently took her by the shoulders and told her that the lady should save face. He added that many people were watching her actions. These words made Persephone look around. Next to them were many fairies and her beloved Adonis, who was closely watching everything that was happening. Pushing her daughter away into the ferryman's hands, the goddess approached the boy and asked him if he was injured. Approaching him, she hugged him tightly, so that the subject of the fight could barely tell her that everything was fine with him. At the same time, the little goddess told Karen to leave, to which he noted that her condition was very serious. But she replied that she was fine and needed to get back to work. Turning to the goddess and her lover, the girl realized that the boy would be speechless. Persephone violently shook his shoulders and shouted his name loudly, trying to bring him to his senses. Seeing that everything was fine with him, she held out her hand and invited him to return. Rucalis, watching everything, gently rubbed the spot of impact and couldn't believe that they simply got up and left. Then she thought that she hadn't predicted that her mother would slap her, and that being possessed by goddesses was very scary. The procession was closed by two fairies, who openly whispered about what had happened. The daughter of Hades was not far away, and could clearly hear their conversation, from which anger erupted in her. Raising her finger, the girl sent a divine punishment to one of them, making the fairy fly through the air. Those leaving turned to see what had happened, and the little goddess asked the fairy if she really believed that a princess would never appear next to the queen of the underworld. The fairy, in agony, tried to justify herself as the magic tightened her throat more and more. In the next second, the unfortunate woman's wings began to gradually evaporate before her eyes. Unable to stay in the air without wings, she began to fall to the ground at lightning speed. As she fell to the ground, she heard the little goddess seriously ask if she was really just a target of mockery by the fairies. The girl added that it couldn't be, that she didn't know that even next to Persephone, she couldn't escape punishment for offending the goddess. She began to step on the hand of the fallen fairy as she begged for forgiveness in tears. Rucalis furiously informed her not to be so arrogant in the future, requesting her mother's protection, and also that she disliked people like her. As she spoke, Persephone, Adonis, and their entourage gradually moved away from sight. Unaware of what had happened, the god of death was the first to see that the little goddess's face showed the mark of a slap. In response to his silent question, the analyst extended her hands and asked him who else thought could have hit her in the face. Realizing that nothing could be fixed, she covered her face with her hand and offered to anoint the area of the blow with an ointment. In response to her negative answer, Thanatos, with irritation in his voice, told her not to persist. The girl grabbed her hair, looked away, and said she didn't want to appear like that in front of everyone. Then, realizing her words, Rucalis angrily asked him if he was trying to take care of her. Without waiting for an answer, she turned around and headed home, and the god of death told her to return to the palace when everything was healed. After saying goodbye to him, she went out onto the street, but thought she would also hit her mother. In front of his father's office, there was a sofa where two half-asleep men were sitting. The girl lay down behind them and asked them a rhetorical question about whether they knew who was born simply because they wanted to, or if they knew someone who couldn't hit because they had no hands. In the reception hall of the royal palace, there is a chair of oblivion that makes one forget everything. One of the men was the earthly king Pirithous, who confessed his love to Persephone. The other was Theseus, a hero and friend of Pirithous, and both could not help but utter a word. Rook Halles continued her diatribe about how she didn't restrain herself because she didn't want to bother her father. Then she asked how it was possible that they liked them. Putting her foot in Theseus's face, she informed them that her people were in complete chaos, but that they were like punching bags. Oisi often wondered if she really knew everything that was happening in the little goddess's soul. Therefore, seeing her now, she was surprised how much her pupil had grown and asked her if she remembered the rules of etiquette for a newcomer and the genealogy of the gods they had studied. Seeing everything that was happening, the god Waniro wiped away his tears, and the goddess Eris laughed cheerfully. The goddess of sorrow tightly hugged the little goddess and told her not to forget what they had taught her, and to always stay close to Hermes. Oisies shook her vigorously to bring her to her senses and tried to find out if her pupil understood everything. Rukales finally realized the gravity of the fact that she had to ascend to Olympus. The day of her ascension arrived, and all her thoughts were that everyone would bid her farewell to war. Freed from the confinement of the goddess of sorrow, the girl moved away from them, hearing that after the ceremony she would definitely come to them, and she would not forget them. She couldn't understand why everyone was so nervous, because it wasn't them who had to go to Zeus. Remembering the god of dreams who burst into tears, the daughter of Hades decided that he was simply old, so she shed a few tears. Approaching the carriage, the girl was indignant that they were taking too much care of her. She didn't like her new colorful dress, which was personally selected by the goddess Oisies. As she walked through the thicket, her only thought was that when she returned, she would return the favor to her supervisors. The god of death had been waiting for her for a long time near the carriage, and upon seeing her, he asked her why she was so late. Rukales was very happy to see her old acquaintance, who was the only one who didn't fearfully take her departure. His face expressed total calm, but he still politely asked her what happened to her and why she didn't leave earlier. Bowing to him, the girl said that it was all the fault of her tutors. Before she could finish speaking, she immediately found herself inside the carriage. Thanks to Thanatos' actions, she was worried about why there was so much noise around her. She believed that everyone wanted to see her. The boy quickly returned her to Earth, telling her that if that were the case, they would have known her when she approached, and added that she should not build empty hopes. The noise outside the carriage intensified, which made the little goddess even more interested. Looking out of the carriage, she saw her mother and resignedly asked her why she was there. The girl said loudly that once was enough for her, and then asked why they saw her so often. Then she turned to Thanatos and asked why someone who had never blessed her was here. Noticing the bewilderment on her friend's face, Ada's daughter asked him if he was hallucinating. Without waiting for an answer, she assumed that Persephone couldn't have reached the carriage alone. Rukales kept looking, thinking that her mother must have taken Adonis with her. An image of her mother's infinite love for the young man appeared before her eyes. The young goddess decided that all this was for them to pay attention to her, since the last time they fought was precisely because of that. She remembered how she tore off the salty room and believed that she had also made a mistake that day. The girl burst out laughing and told Thanatos that she had hated her father for hundreds of years, and asked him why he was paying attention to himself at that moment. Without listening to her speech, Thanatos covered her eyes with his hand, but he didn't take into account that she managed to see everything. Rukales witnessed the passionate kiss between Persephone and Adonis, which caused her to get out of the carriage. The god of death tried to stop her, and the daughter of Hades wondered if they were really using their tongues. Since the rumor ran that this method rejuvenated, many fairies blushed at what they saw and sighed that it was a kiss with a handsome young man, while Thanatos, meanwhile, tried to convince the young goddess not to look in their direction. The girl continued to watch, saying that this is how Adonis attracts goddesses, and then concluded that she also wants the handsome man for herself. A few moments later, they heard the noise of horses and wondered who else could join them. Lifting her head, she saw a beautiful golden carriage and began to recall the genealogy of the gods. From Oisis's lessons, she knew that loose blonde hair and white swan reliefs belonged to only one goddess. And this goddess was none other than Aphrodite, who came to the underworld to take her lover. The girl was stunned by the luxury and beauty of one of the great goddesses of Olympus. Upon landing, the goddess first began to hug Adonis, whom she hadn't seen in a long time. Rukales quickly realized that people were there to see Aphrodite. Not her. The newcomer told her lover that she had missed him during all these 6 months. Immediately after her words came a long-awaited kiss, at which everyone froze in amazement. Suddenly, many flowers appeared around them, to which the young goddess thought where flowers could come from in the underworld. Remembering that her mother had been with Adonis before, the girl turned her gaze to her. Persephone was blacker than a cloud, to which the young goddess noted that she was completely furious. Thanatos still thought it was better for the daughter of Hades not to see all these scenes. He covered her face with his hand again and told her that it was better for children not to see such a spectacle. Removing his hand from her, the girl became enraged and asked him where he saw children here. Because since birth she had a broad knowledge of human thought, and the sight was pleasing to her eyes. With an exclamation that goddesses do not lose, she savagely bit his finger, to which the god of death remarked that she was not a goddess, but an animal, since he liked it that way. Their fight was interrupted by the sweet voice of Aphrodite, inviting Adonis to go to Olympus. Reucales remembered that she needed to greet the great goddess, so without hesitation, she headed towards her. After bowing in greeting, the girl introduced herself, to which the goddess in response asked her if she was really the daughter of the underworld king himself. Upon hearing an affirmative answer, Aphrodite apologized for such explicit scenes, and added that she had been separated from her lover for a long time. The girl couldn't believe how, even embarrassed, the goddess was full of love, saying that she had seen Reucales when she was very small, so she didn't know how much she had grown. Then she approached the young goddess and affectionately told her that she had heard that she would ascend to Olympus today, after which she wished her to become a great follower of Hades. The young goddess could only think that she had been kissed by the most beautiful goddess in the world, so she decided that she would no longer wash her face and would definitely tell Hermes about it. Then the goddess whispered that the girl's dress suited her very well, to which she received thanks in response. Turning to Adonis, Reucales noticed with what attention he was looking at them. Her train of thought was interrupted by the approach of Hades, towards whom the girl immediately ran. And the goddess of beauty said that they hadn't seen him in a long time. Aphrodite asked him why he was almost invisible, and then added that she knew he didn't like to go out, and advised him to look at Olympus more often. The king of the underworld smiled slyly and calmly promised her that he would do his best. The goddess was pleased with his answer, smiled, and said that in that case she would go first. Hades took his daughter in his arms, and together they politely waved goodbye to the carriage, moving away from them. They watched for a long time as the goddess of beauty's carriage disappeared into the distance. Thanatos immediately appeared behind them, informing them that it was time for them to leave too. To his request that the young goddess not cause an accident, Reucales replied irritably that none of that would happen. The outside world is full of bright colors. The sky itself has hundreds of colors, which is why the girl constantly tried to look out the window. Her eyes had never seen such beauty that words could not describe. He affectionately called his daughter Rue. The father was interested in her impressions of the world that Hermes had told her about. To his answer that everything was much more beautiful than she had imagined, the god of the underworld smiled with satisfaction. The cheerful daughter told him that she was so delighted with so much beauty that it was difficult for her to stay still. When Persephone kissed Adonis, Reucales was glad that her father was not there, but in her heart, she understood that he was deliberately late. She reasoned that he knew everything about her mother, and was definitely aware that today was the day she was saying goodbye to her lover. The girl remembered her mother's words, that they should entrust Elysian to her and never try to find her again. From the moment she heard Persephone's request not to look for her, there was always a question in her heart that she kept secret. The young goddess felt that, if she hadn't resembled her father and hadn't been her mother's daughter, Hades would have loved her. Then she decided it was a stupid question, because even if she were like Persephone, her mother still wouldn't love her. Even if she resembled her in appearance, there was always the fact that the girl was the daughter of a person she didn't love. Sitting in the carriage, Reucales thought that nothing would ever change, but she still believed that if she looked more like her mother, her father would love her more. She had wanted to ask for a long time. Many were always afraid, because there was always the option that her father would answer that they didn't love her. Noticing her sad look, Hades gently put his arm around her shoulder and announced that it was time to go for a walk, which greatly reassured her. At the same time, the god of war was resting on a mountain of still warm corpses that had fallen during a recent battle, thinking that the day had come when he could kill the insolent one. In Olympus, unrestrained fun reigned. Almost all the gods were drinking intoxicating drinks. Observing everything that was happening, the arriving young goddess was immediately sprayed with a drink. She thought the ceremony should be a more formal celebration. Contrary to her expectations, Olympus turned out to be free, and the flowers were colorful and beautiful like precious stones. She thought there was nothing more beautiful than the jewels found in the underworld. The chief god Zeus immediately took her on his lap and told her that when he first saw her, she fit in his hand, and that now she had grown significantly. Then he added that Eros was once as small as her, but now he has become disgusting. The girl attentively watched the gods present there, while Zeus asked her what she thought when she first visited Olympus. Seeing Hermes wink, Reucales changed her expression and replied that Olympus is beautiful. Then Zeus mysteriously asked her if she knew what her task was as the goddess of resurrection. It seemed to her that he was giving her a test, so the young goddess dryly replied that she knew her duties. She added that her main task is to return to the surface those who accidentally ended up in the other world. Her second task was to give life in spring to what had lost its strength in winter. And the last mission was to tie the thread of fate to those who atoned for their sins in the underworld. Remembering the special guest Tantalus, the girl added that she should allow them to be reborn. Zeus was very pleased that she perfectly knew her main duties, and said that she was indeed the daughter of Hades. He humbled her ardor and said in a calm voice that there was a more important matter for her. Approaching her, he quietly informed her that she had the power to resurrect the dead. Then Zeus said that not a single god of Olympus, not even the highest god like him, could do this. All living beings have threads of fate tied to them by 3 goddesses of fate. The most indestructible of them is the thread of life. Reucales said, bewildered that she had no plans to interfere in people's lives and deaths. She added that she didn't attach much importance to death, because from the outside world to the underworld, people only change their place of residence. Zeus looked at her with interest and concluded that this is why she doesn't go beyond the underworld. Patting her on the head, he cheerfully told her to do what she thought was right. The chief god said that her words calmed him, but many gods did not think so. He suggested considering Aphrodite as an example, who, after the death of her beloved Adonis, shares him with another. Zeus added that now, at every meeting with the young goddess, she would beg for the boy's resurrection. The girl confirmed his words, saying that Adonis smells more like a dead man, to which God affirmed that this is so, because vitality has its limit. He calmly explained that the subject of their dispute, and those who once knew him had died long ago. Then Zeus added that even if the man unexpectedly resurrects, this will not alter the course of life. Everyone perfectly understood that in case of resurrection, Aphrodite would always be by the unfortunate one's side. Consequently, Persephone, as soon as she learned this news, would immediately go crazy from the hopelessness of the situation. The chief god said that he still has many requests, but since he is the leader, he cannot express them all. Releasing her head, he asked the girl if she remembered that those who disturb the course of life end up in Tartarus. The young goddess immediately remembered that terrible creature, who constantly shouted that a little goddess had reached them. Smelling of death. Once calm, Reucales smiled welcomingly and said that she knew this better than anyone. Suddenly, Zeus began to lift her from his knees, saying that common gods would not interfere with her. Lowering her in front of him, he announced the beginning of the initiation ceremony of the new goddess, and wished her to always make wise decisions. Now she could see what was hidden behind the gaze of the many gods present at her ceremony. The chief god enthusiastically said that in the name of the supreme god Zeus, he names Reucales, the daughter of Hades and the princess of the underworld, the goddess of resurrection. The girl saw thirst and passion on the faces of those present. She understood what would be a benefit for them and what would be a loss. Aphrodite mysteriously called the young goddess and asked her to come to her when everything was over. Reucales understood that this is exactly what she wanted to tell Zeus, that the great and beautiful Olympus is full of darkness and secrets. But feeling a surge of strength, Ada's daughter firmly decided that she could handle everything. After the ceremony, Hermes approached her and asked if Olympus was better than she thought, or not, to which she replied that this place deserved to be seen someday. God knows, he perfectly saw how she admired the flowers, to which the girl explained that they were more elegant than those growing in the underworld. The boy laughed and told her that she was always so stubborn, to which Reucales said that the celebration was very different from what she had imagined. Hermes was sincerely surprised by her words, pretending not to understand at all what she was talking about, how liberated the local inhabitants were. Even the chief god did not deny himself the pleasure of carnal pleasures. The boy said that in Olympus, everyone is more open than in the underworld. Then he added with a sigh that the god of death had exactly the same reaction as her. The girl couldn't believe his words and asked him if her friend was really having so much fun, because all this time she considered him a eunuch. Hermes said that he reluctantly drank a couple of glasses and left, just as Hades once did. The boy suggested that the gods of the underworld are more sensible than other male gods, so there are rumors that they are all boring. She said that she had actually never seen Thanatos lay a hand on a woman. Hearing the story, the god of news suddenly grabbed a passing maiden and told her that it was quite difficult for the god of death because he didn't know what real pleasure was. The girl tried to escape his embrace, but God had no intention of yielding to her. Seductively, he began to ask her if she really didn't like his actions, because before that, he saw how she watched everything from the side. A strong kick from Rucales brought him to his senses, after which the girl asked him if he really didn't understand the words. Still angry with him, the daughter of Hades said that the girl made it clear to him that she didn't want anything. And even if he was a god, this didn't give him the right to act like that. Turning to the poor maiden, he added with relief that she would also scold him. The girl hastily walked away, angrily muttering words of gratitude between her teeth. Hermes laughed embarrassedly and asked her what he should do if she kept interfering in his affairs. The young goddess didn't understand anything. She was especially interested in the girl's strange reaction and her friend's teasing. Sitting in the corridor of Olympus, the goddess of resurrection loudly argued that Thanatos deserves to be alone in the underworld. Suddenly, she remembered that she was supposed to meet the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite. Sitting on the stone floor, the daughter of Hades understood that she didn't want to get involved in the confrontation between the goddesses at all. Getting up, she firmly decided that the goddesses would not escape and headed towards Aphrodite's bedroom. Once upon a time, a fairy told her that on the day Adonis was supposed to return to Olympus, Persephone chained him out of fear. So now it seemed to her that Aphrodite would do the same to her lover. The girl decided that she would watch everything with one eye, and if anything happened, she would help him escape. As she moved deeper into the room, she didn't understand where everyone had gone, and at the same time, she wondered why he was born so handsome in the first place. As she approached the bed, Rucales noticed the clothes thrown on the floor, and then realized how stupid she had been. She saw Aphrodite and Adonis making love, which made her realize that the goddess was not angry with him. The goddess of resurrection received confirmation that the boy, on the contrary, is now diligently receiving praise. Leaving the room, she walked down the hallway, reasoning that she shouldn't be like the actions of the fairies, or Adonis, because it would only be to her detriment. As she passed the large pillars, the young goddess wondered aloud if she should go drink the nectar. A stranger called her. He asked her if she was the same goddess of resurrection, and rudely commented that she was even smaller than he thought. Turning around, the girl saw a red-haired boy with a wild posture in front of her. Only one person can exude such a strong smell of blood, so she bowed to him in greeting. Because before her was the god of war Ares. The stranger turned out to be Aphrodite's first love, who continued to say that he had never heard before that she was deaf. There was a lot of information about the goddess of beauty, Aphrodite, as she was constantly surrounded by men. Because she didn't like the appearance of her husband Hephaestus, she shared her love with many. Her most famous lover was her husband's younger brother, the god of war Ares. They were not shy with anyone and never tried to hide their love from anyone in Olympus. Ares is the chief god, the patron of war, who, along with Athena, helped replenish the population of the underworld. The young goddess constantly thought about when she would meet him, but she couldn't even imagine that it would happen exactly like this. There was only one reason in the world why he could search for her so frantically. He told her that his beloved would ask her to resurrect Adonis, because she dreams of the boy being resurrected. Once upon a time, a boar killed the object of the goddess of beauty's desire. Now he demanded that the young goddess resurrect, and under no circumstances fulfill her request. He added that even if Aphrodite constantly gave him life, someday there would still be a limit. Ares said that the dead man could not resist his fate forever and continue running between Olympus and the underworld. As he left, he said that if Adonis remained trapped in the underworld, it would be much easier for the two of them. Smiling, the boy asked her if she wouldn't be happy if Persephone hung around her lover and didn't go out. The girl did not answer his monologue. She only thought that he was the culprit of everything that happened between the two goddesses. He continued to say that she didn't want to act irrationally and be punished. Turning to her, the boy said that there is a punishment for disobedience to the foundations, that he will not overlook even God. Rouletabille looked at him indignantly, wondering if he really thought it was so easy to scare her. The jealousy of the gods is very fierce, but he himself coveted another man's wife, and now he dared to ask her for such a thing. She heard Hephaestus openly ask his younger brother if he was ashamed to show his love for his wife so openly. Ares and Aphrodite had sex right on top of all of Olympus, while in the nets. The angry husband of the goddess of beauty shouted loudly for them to immediately get down to the ground before he broke the net. Therefore, now the daughter of Hades thought that, even being disgraced before all the gods. Looking at Ares, who is still running after her, Aphrodite's preferences seem quite broad. Then she suggested that it was not only the appearance of the god of war, but also something else. Not hearing an answer from her, Ares assumed that he could take that as a positive response. Approaching her, he menacingly announced that this scoundrel had to be killed. The young goddess was horrified. A shiver ran down her spine, and she thought that this god was completely crazy. It seemed to her that because he was increasing the population of the underworld, his opinion had reached its limit. The girl suggested that the goddess of beauty Aphrodite apparently only saw his face. As she descended one of the many stairs of Olympus, she thought that, in fact, she had not originally planned to resurrect Adonis. Rouletabille firmly decided that she did not want to go to Tartarus because of him, even if he was handsome. However, she was very frightened by a conversation with the god of war Ares, who made it clear what consequences awaited her. Now she didn't know what was better to do, because everything inside her was twisted. The young goddess suddenly remembered that Zeus himself had also told her not to do this. She decided to stop worrying about all the events and drank the nectar again. There was one truth this girl overlooked: the reason why Zeus gave instructions on resurrection on the day of the banquet. Many people were waiting for her, shouting and exclaiming that they loved her very much. One of them held a girl pierced by a sword, asking the goddess of resurrection to bring her back to life. Another girl pushed him, saying that her body burned in the fire and turned to ashes, but that she believed it was possible to resurrect him. In Olympus, everyone knows the danger of altering the course of life, but there are still many people who want to bring someone close back to life. At the same time, Hermes lay sweetly on the lap of one of the fairies and slowly ate a red apple. The fairy said that she hadn't seen the little goddess in a long time and remembered that Erebus had entrusted her to her. God knows, he stuffed the rest of the apple into his mouth, grabbed the fairy with a strong hand and, jokingly, asked her if she was okay. Leaning on the table, Rouletabille reasoned that if she had known that everyone would cling to her like that, she would never have come to Olympus. She didn't understand how the inhabitants could do such a thing, because this was not an auction, and everyone was trying to catch her. Someone shouted at her to help him first. Others chanted in unison for her to take her turn, but she herself didn't want to resurrect anyone. Her thoughts were interrupted when Hermes approached and asked her why she looked like that. He masterfully pretended not to understand what was wrong with her, so he decided to ask her if she really enjoyed creativity, or if something was bothering her. Approaching, God knows, apparently, the rumors that she was being chased everywhere by those who wanted to resurrect someone were true. He said that for 3 days they threw corpses in beautiful Olympus, brought corpses with flies buzzing around them, and even threatened her. After that, the girl squeezed the glass in her hand and said she wasn't in the mood to talk. Hermes, exhausted, informed her that Hades had gone somewhere to be alone. The young goddess suggested that the reason for this could be the giants or something else, and the boy calmly said that the problem was the Titans. The girl turned to him, looked him in the eyes with fear, and asked if he really knew anything about this. 2 predictions came true. The first was that the Titans would invade Olympus. The second prediction was that the son of Zeus would get rid of all of them and free his beautiful abode. Hermes finished his story by saying that 10 years had already passed since this prediction, after which he noticed that his pupil was very drunk. The girl indignantly asked what kind of love this was, that everyone brings her rotten bodies and asks her to resurrect them. She added that if they love and miss them so much, they should go to them in the afterlife, or pray to Zeus. God knows he covered his face with his hand, but when he moved it away, he saw the young goddess licking something from the cup. He asked the man next to his ward, who was holding a corpse in his arms, what he was doing. Snatching the glass from her hands, the boy asked her if she really thought that if she drank too much, who would agree to resurrect. The girl, angry, asked for the drink back, but Hermes insisted that Erebus had ordered him to watch her. He added that she had already drunk enough and suggested she go to bed, to which she, indignant, asked him if he really thought she was drunk. Upon hearing an affirmative answer, Rukali pointed to herself and said that goddesses do not get drunk. Getting up from her seat, she asked him in surprise if he had ever seen the goddess of resurrection drunk, to which he replied that he had seen her just now. Hades' daughter cheerfully spun her hand from her head to her chest, announcing that she was a goddess, and he did not know how great her powers were. His silence irritated her even more, so she asked him again if he knew how great her power was. It seemed to her that God knew that she had decided she was drunk, but she could not accept this fact. Approaching one of the rooms, she was still waving her arms, shouting that she would destroy Olympus, because everything here was unbearable. But Hermes only thought that, when this little girl wakes up, she will feel very ashamed. Lying on the floor with a cup of wine on her head, Rukali's wondered if she had ever been in love with a human woman. The boy asked her in surprise if she was really interested in that topic, to which he received an affirmative answer. He told her that she once existed, to which the goddess of resurrection asked where she had gone now. Hermes said he hadn't told anyone before, but he would tell her as soon as she wiped the wine off her face. Why did the boy calmly tell her that his beloved had been dead for several hundred years? The girl asked him if she needed him to resurrect her, to which God knows that it is that he could not resurrect the dust into which her bones had already worn away. Rukali's realized that if she said that, apparently the two of them had been through a lot. She asked him why he gave up so easily if the taxi loved this man so much, since her father still wanted to have Persephone, even though she ran away from him. Looking him in the eyes, Ada's daughter asked him with interest if he really didn't love her anymore. After hitting the young goddess on the head, the boy declared that he loved her very much, to which she shouted that it would be better to tell him how she was instead of hitting him. Hermes, with complete indifference, told her that he did not know this at all, to which the girl thought he was trying to deceive her. The boy laughed heartily and recalled that she probably had long hair, and she looked very beautiful, to which Rukali's noted that her face lit up. He calmly added that he remembered that the girl really liked various flowers. God knows that he cherished her like his own breath, so after her death, at first he really missed her. Then 10 years passed, then 100 years, and then several hundred more years, after which he stopped visiting her grave. Every time he visited her, the boy cried bitterly for his lost life and his immortal form. Now he spoke enthusiastically that he had completely forgotten her face, her name, her smile, and her voice. In the end, Hermes added sadly that if she felt she was falling in love with a person, then it was better for her not to even start. The girl listened to him calmly, remembering that smile when trying to recall her beloved. But she told him that not starting something out of fear is for cowards. She asked what she should do if she still fell in love with a person. He explained that one option was to run away, that she had the strength to finally not watch her lover die. The second option is to kill your loved one before you lose your mind from love. Hermes explained that if she didn't choose either option, she would end up suffering. For a long time, gods who fell in love with people could never find their happiness. For example, the moon goddess Selene fell in love with the handsome shepherd Endymion, and to save him from aging, she plunged him into eternal sleep. The dawn goddess Eos once fell madly in love with the Trojan prince, the hero Tithonus. She asked the gods to grant her lover immortality so she could always be with him. Hermes said that Selene could only whisper her love to the sleeping boy while he slept. Then he added that Eos, looking at the intrepid but elderly Tithonus, turned him into a cicada and kept him close her whole life. The girl said she was completely different from Selene and Eos, so she would never do that. She said she asked him to tell her about love, and he told her about goddesses. The boy suggested that she would soon have a clear example in the form of Persephone and Adonis. God knows that, in any case, there are already enough gods suffering from love for man. He said that their moral strength is not replenished. They can only wait until the moment they completely forget their loved ones. Seeing the gods around him, crying over the bodies of the dead, Hermes languidly said that they could only wait until hundreds of years passed. Rukali's listened very carefully to his story and realized the depth of the emotions experienced. Before her eyes closed, she heard the gods' instructions on what to do if she fell in love with a person. The next morning, Zeus woke up in his bed with one of the maidens, after a wonderful night. Seeing her, he gently hugged the fairy and asked if she slept well, to which he heard in response that his master was always beautiful. God informed her that this was his last night, even though they were a perfect couple. Suddenly, someone moved in the bed, so the man decided that he had brought two people with him. Lifting the blanket, he saw underneath it the frightened daughter of Hades, who also did not understand what she was doing there. She politely greeted the god, but then her gaze dropped lower, to the object located between his legs, and covered with a sheet. Zeus frantically pulled it out from under the blanket and covered her naked body, not understanding how she ended up in his room. Rukali said embarrassedly that since she was in Zeus's room, who loves curvy beauties, she most likely wanted to try something new. The supreme god looked at her sternly and said that she was dressed, and that it was necessary to pay attention to this first, and then make guesses. The girl happily sat on the bed and assumed that she must have drunk a lot, and somehow entered his room. Covering himself and his lover, he told her not to get so drunk in the future. The young goddess made a sweet face, confirmed his words, and invited him to continue with his morning exercises. Zeus thought for a while and then said that half of the celebration had already passed, after which he asked her if she was really plotting something. Rukali smiled sweetly, laughed quietly, and said that she had completely forgotten. The supreme god informed her that, since she had lived in the underworld since birth, she would most likely find it difficult to understand the structure of the world on the surface. He added that he would like her to stay longer on Olympus, and told her to think about it before leaving. The young goddess asked embarrassedly if the ruler's taste had really changed, to which he quickly replied that he did not mean that. Looking at his hand as if wearing a watch, he announced that it was quite late and that he had to leave. Running quickly to the door, she waved her hand to those lying on the bed, and politely said goodbye to everyone. In the end, the girl added that he should have a good time with the fairy, to which he, irritated, thanked him. The goddess of resurrection hoped that all this was over and went to look for Hermes. Everyone around them began to talk about the daughter of Hades and Zeus, but she did not understand at all what context they were talking about. God knows, he burst out laughing, because the girl was in such an interesting situation. She calmly asked him if he really couldn't restrain himself, and started a rumor about them. The boy, barely containing his laughter, tried to apologize to her, but Rukali's was not at all happy about this. But their angry speeches were interrupted by Hephaestus, who approached from behind. On the surface, besides the god of news Hermes, Rukali's had one more friend. Seeing him, she ran into his arms, fleetingly remembering that he was the one who made the golden chairs. Because he was the god of the forge, hugging his lifelong girlfriend, the elder said he had seen the initiation ceremony, and asked her if she was having a good time. Smiling, the girl said with satisfaction that she didn't know how to spend her time otherwise, and she asked him the same question. The elder recounted that he had heard that she had caused a scene in her father's room, to which he received an affirmative answer. The young goddess said that someone started a rumor, alluding to Hermes. The boy, in turn, explained that she herself opened the door to the room and entered. Then he added that it happened right in the middle of the action, so he could not intervene in any way. The three of them were awkwardly silent, not daring to make a sound, each thinking their own thoughts. Finally, the god of the forge interrupted the pause, saying that he had recently made something, after which he invited them to see his product. Ada's daughter, completely embarrassed, angrily asked what was going on, and God knows at that moment put his hand on her shoulder and advised her to hold her head high. Hephaestus showed his creation, the golden girls, who made the deepest impression on the young goddess. The elder added that lately he has had trouble moving, so he made them to help him. He said that when he needs to inflate his bellows, or when he needs to manipulate something hot, they help him a lot. Rukali's was already hugging one of them, indignant that her friend had not told her before, and she asked him to give her one of them. Her eyes were filled with a desire to get the precious gold object, and a little saliva flowed from her mouth. From behind the bushes, the stranger watched the conversation of the three gods, and clearly heard the pleas of the young goddess. The elder, with sadness in his voice, said he was very sorry, but he only had 2 golden girls, and he believed that he needed both of them. Hearing this, the girl immediately sank, lowered her head, and said nothing to her old friend. To his question about whether she really liked the golden girls so much, she turned around and nodded affirmatively. Seeing her interest, the god of the forge said that before making these 2, he had a failed attempt. A ray of hope appeared on the young goddess's face, so when he asked her if she wanted him to bring it to her, the girl answered loudly and clearly affirmatively. Hephaestus explained that although he called it a failure, the problem is only related to character. Otherwise, there is nothing serious. Before he could finish speaking, his little friend immediately flew to him with enthusiastic cries of gratitude. While in an embrace, the god of the forge declared that she was the only one who hugged him. Hearing these words, God knows, took a pose that said he was also ready to hug the elder. Seeing this, Hephaestus directly said that he would not hug Hermes, to which he shouted that God was cruel. The incident with Hades' daughter in Zeus's bedroom brought an unexpected result. Zeus declared that from now on excessive requests were forbidden, particularly against the young goddess's excessive alcohol consumption. The boy who brought the bowls was very worried about this news. The supreme god also declared that serious measures must be taken in case of behavior that crosses the line. Then he looked at the god of news and furiously asked him if he really understood the gravity of his offense, to which the guy replied affirmatively. After a while, Hermes and Reucales walked through the garden, and the girl happily said that now no one would bother her anymore, after which she smugly announced that this Olympus of his was in the crosshairs of her throat. Trying to protect his abode, God knows, announced that he simply did not feel all the charm of this place, because he hadn't been to the local market yet. A crowd of girls suddenly appeared in front of them, enthusiastically discussing something. The girl assumed that, judging by the cheers, it was not some kind of fight. Suddenly, she rushed into the crowd, saying that maybe there was something interesting in this boring Olympus. Among the dense crowd, she saw a god with purple hair and a cheeky look. Sensing a strange gaze upon him, the boy turned towards the mysterious guest and greeted the young goddess. Dionysus stood in front of her and asked her to forgive him for being late for such an important event. The girl lowered her eyes shyly and said that nothing bad had happened. The crowd shouted that they were waiting for him, to which the god apologized to his guests and headed towards them. Hermes approached her and asked why she tensed up so much when she saw Dionysus, to which she told him to shut up. Dionysus has the power to create a suitable atmosphere for fun and entertainment. However, she clearly remembered her conversation with Thanatos about this god's worshippers. Therefore, the girl modestly replied that she simply felt uncomfortable and asked to quickly leave the crowd. If the gods are not happy, the bath can wipe out a city or destroy an entire country. Since the gods created people, they can also destroy them, like common insects. The young goddess was tormented by many thoughts about the freedom of the gods, so she quickly left the noisy company. Suddenly, a boy approached her. Reucales looked at him and saw that Adonis himself was standing in front of her. To her question why he came to her, the boy replied that he wanted to talk to her for a while. Walking deeper into the garden, the girl thought that he had probably come to convey Aphrodite's words to her. White swans, which were symbols of the goddess of love, followed him everywhere. And beauty. It seemed to the young goddess that these birds were watching them, but even though they weren't, she didn't understand why the boy was leading her to such a remote place. Not wanting to go further, Reucales firmly asked what Aphrodite had asked him to convey. Adonis turned around and said that his beloved could not hear what he was going to say to her here. Then he added that the goddess wanted Reucales to resurrect him as quickly as possible. The boy explained that his beloved wants him to be resurrected and stay with her forever. Lowering his voice slightly, he said that he wanted the young goddess to refuse this request. The girl could not believe what she had just heard, so she asked him again if he understood that this was a sure death for him. Adonis, very calmly and consciously, replied affirmatively and said nothing more. The young goddess asked him in surprise if he really wanted to remain trapped in the underworld for the rest of his life and never see Aphrodite again. He just shrugged casually, but the goddess of resurrection did not give up and suggested that it was all Ares' fault, who was also intimidating him. Then she came to the completely logical conclusion that Adonis most likely did not love the goddess of beauty. The boy was very embarrassed, replied negatively, and asked who could not love her. Then she suggested that maybe he loved his mother more than Aphrodite, to which he replied that of course he loved her too. But that was not the point. Walking in the shadow of the trees, Adonis asked the young goddess if she liked his appearance. Reucales childishly gave a thumbs up and said that he was quite handsome. Seeing the expression on his face, she immediately realized that this was not what he really wanted to hear. The boy told her that whether it was Aphrodite or Persephone, they would never change. Then he added that this was the main reason why, unlike the Almighty, ordinary people age and die over time. The girl did not fully understand why he was leading, but deep down, she realized that she had been thinking about this question for a long time. Adonis explained that as he ages, his appearance, which everyone considers beautiful, will gradually change as he ages. Taking a break from his reflection in the waterfall water, he easily looked at the goddess of resurrection and said that he was not ready to feel this. In the temple of Olympus, many gods felt disgusted after the arrival of Dionysus because they were overcome by the consequences of intoxicating drinks. Hermes, observing everything that was happening, thought that his ward had gone somewhere long ago, and Aphrodite was somehow smiling mysteriously. Seeing Ares next to her, the boy involuntarily decided that these gods were plotting something bad. Adonis approached them, cheerfully informing his beloved that he had returned. The goddess of love gently touched his cheek and asked him if everything was all right, to which he replied affirmatively. Realizing that the young goddess had not returned with Adonis, Hermes immediately went to look for her. The boy was indignant and cursed loudly, where this little one could have gone so fast. Meeting an unknown boy on the way, he asked him if he had seen a girl with curly purple hair, to which he pointed in the direction he had gone. After a while, Hermes, sweaty from the run, finally found the young goddess deep in the forest. He thought that he should not have let her go, but rather grabbed her tighter, because this fool was worrying all the gods around him. When a serious power struggle broke out in Olympus, Erebus ceded the throne and descended with the Titans to the underworld, becoming the second god after Zeus. Hermes knew that he was very close to Hades' daughter and was also her mentor, who was very protective of her from an early age. God knows, he realized that if something happened to the girl, the Titans, who held a grudge against each other, could resurface. He also remembered the expression on Rukali's face, whom he had last seen, which did not inspire him with anything good. Therefore, now he ran as fast as he could through the forest in search of the lost protection that Erebus had assigned to her. Finally, he found her sitting near the fountain, alone, with the young goddess looking at him surprised. Looking into her eyes, the boy blushed and furiously said that he had no idea how many beautiful fairies he had missed while waiting for her. Rukali's did not like his words, so she asked him why he was like that and when he would finally grow up. Hermes smiled mysteriously and asked her why she had such a thin expression on her face. Hades' daughter recounted that Adonis asked her not to resurrect him, to which God knows in surprise that he really said he loved Persephone more. She laughed sarcastically and said that she herself thought the same, to which he replied that the guy was just a fool with a cute face. The girl remembered how she tried to control herself to respond to the request not to resurrect Adonis. In the end, the goddess of resurrection agreed, which greatly puzzled the god of news. During his conversation with Adonis, he admitted that Ares intimidated him, but that he was much more afraid of something completely different. Looking at the little goddess with a condemned look, he calmly said that he was afraid of slowly getting old. He was scared to see Ares next to Aphrodite, who remained just as young and beautiful. After which, the boy asked Hades' daughter to allow him to remain among the dead. Suddenly, Rukali's thought that Adonis's expression seemed very familiar. She remembered the expression on Hermes' face when he tried to remember his first lover. Now God knows annoyed that Adonis may be handsome, but he thinks very poorly. He added that he really thought that the goddesses stayed with him for so long only because they fell in love with his appearance. The boy was sure that throughout his eternal life, he had met many handsome men. Hades' daughter said that she perfectly understood Hermes' reasoning and that if she thought a little, she could estimate how deep his love was. She thought that this short and thin boy was going to trample the love of the goddess of beauty with his desires. The girl raised her head and reasoned that if Adonis looked up a little, he could understand everything. Hermes jokingly suggested that the boy thought very humanly, and then added that everyone decided that Aphrodite had calmed down. Then he asked her if she really hadn't told Adonis anything, because he thought she was quite close to him. The young goddess again gave a thumbs up like a child, and cheerfully said that she definitely liked him, because he was very handsome, after which she added that some are so beautiful that even if they like them, they really bother them. If Adonis dies, he will never see his beloved Aphrodite again. Hades' daughter suggested that at that moment, the boy finally realizes that the goddess would love him. Even if he were very old, the choice will have been made, and all that will be left for him will be endless regret, and wondering if Persephone still loves him, because he is young and handsome. Rukalis concluded that he would probably always regret his decision and constantly doubt his mother's love. Then she laughed sincerely and said that this could be detrimental to him. Hermes listened to her attentively and then said that there was a green caterpillar perched in her hair. The girl began frantically trying to remove the insect from her hair, to God knows wild laughter. Having finished with the caterpillar, the young goddess angrily asked him why he was laughing, and added that this was a very serious conversation. The boy apologized several times and decided that the goddess of resurrection had acted very wisely. He added that these are Adonis's problems and he himself cannot judge them correctly. Hermes then explained that he would never understand why people make such whimsical decisions. Rukalis cheerfully apologized for thinking that only God knows how to take girls to his bed. The boy told her that it was a little unpleasant for him to hear that face, after which he recalled that they had the last day of celebration left and asked her if she wanted to stay on Olympus or return to the underworld. The young goddess looked at him mysteriously and told him that she had been very busy these days. She added that initially she wanted to return to her father in the underworld. Ada's daughter said that the more she listened to Adonis, the more disturbing thoughts assailed her. To his question about what thoughts tormented her, the girl calmly replied if her father really loved her. It seemed to her that she was just a substitute for her mother for him, and she was worried about the question of whether he did not like her only because she looked so much like her. A little embarrassed, Rukalis said that all sorts of similar thoughts constantly come to her head. Hermes sighed deeply and said that she was worried about more serious things than he thought, to which she replied that Dad was everything to her. The girl said that she still hardly saw him because he was always busy. After listening to her carefully, the boy concluded that there would always be only one answer, so he advised her to ask her father personally. The last day of the ceremony arrived, and before she could do anything, she was forced to make a decision about where she would stay. Unexpectedly, the god of the underworld returned to Olympus, greatly surprising everyone present. To his question about how she felt, Rukalis enthusiastically replied that everything was fine with her. But deep in her soul, she was very embarrassed. Zeus interrupted their conversation and asked her if she had made her final decision. Then he leaned close to her ear and quietly asked her if he could count on her. His gaze fell on her, and Hermes' gaze was full of hope. But Hades' daughter finally managed to make a decision. The goddess of resurrection announced to everyone gathered there that she was returning to her father in the underworld. Olympus is not a bad place, where there are flowers, bright lights, and everything that cannot be seen in the underworld. But still, Rukalis loved the underworld because she was born and raised there. Sitting in the carriage, she thought that she did not regret visiting Olympus because Hermes was there. And the good fairies. Everyone tearfully wished them a good journey, promising to visit them someday. The fairies handed her a beautiful bouquet of daisies, after which they fled in fright. Because the god of war was running towards the little goddess, Ares tightly squeezed Hades' daughter in his arms and cheerfully said that he had heard everything. He explained that she refused to resurrect Adonis, after which he stated that if she needed anything, she could safely turn to him. Squeezing her even tighter against himself, Aphrodite's cheerful lover said that he was now her debtor. The goddess of beauty watched them this whole time, indignant at this decision of the goddess of resurrection. Zeus also approached them and asked her once again if she was really returning to the underworld. Hades grabbed Ares by the hair to pull him away from his daughter and told Zeus that their conversation was over. The supreme god added that he simply wanted to tell her that she had one last chance, to which her father replied that they did not need her. She loved the shine of gold and the endless supply of precious stones, but above all, Rukalis loved her father's approval. Now, sitting in the carriage, she thought that Dad always gives her what she asks for because he calmly gives her gold and silver and even gave her the asphodel fields. Then she concluded that, while it would be fantastic to stay on Olympus, this would never happen. The underworld was her true place, where she could live happily ever after. She had a dream in which a stranger was wrapped in a cloak and asked her if she really loved gold and jewelry. He said that she liked that it was Hades who gave them to her, and then asked her if she was sure that these things were for her. The man said that she was just a pitiful little goddess who was worth nothing. He asked her if her mother loved her father. The god of the underworld would still love her. Suddenly, the stranger, with a skillful movement, took off his cloak and underneath was Persephone. The woman asked her what would happen if it turned out to be a false love. Then, her mother grabbed her by the neck and continued talking about the fact that there was something she could never have just by wishing for it. Shedding tears, she explained that she had taken it from the young goddess quite some time ago. Waking up from the dream, the girl was very alarmed. Drops of sweat ran down her face, and her mind could not believe what she had dreamed. Bending down, Rukalis tried to regain her senses and realized that it was just a strange dream. The father noticed that something was wrong with his daughter, so he asked her what had happened to her. The girl took a deep breath, after which she regained her senses and replied that she was fine. The god of the underworld showed her his love materially, so even if he didn't put his soul into it, she didn't care. She was willing to be content with just his smile, recalling the past events of her life. It was for this reason that Ada's daughter did not want to bother her beloved father again. She thought about how there were always so many gods who loved her by her side that it seemed to her that she did not need her father's love. Her thoughts were interrupted by the calm voice of her father, affectionately calling his daughter by name. Having caught her attention, he said that if she wanted to ask something, she should definitely ask. Hayes calmly added that he would try to answer her with all honesty. The girl hesitated for a long time whether to ask a secret question, but she gathered her courage and asked her father if he really loved her. The god of the underworld was very perplexed by this question and looked at her silently for a while. Realizing that the pause had lasted quite a while, he finally asked her, bewildered, why she had decided to ask such a question. Hades did everything possible to ensure that his only daughter always had what she wanted. He did his best to, contrary to his character, say kind words to her. Taking a deep breath, her father replied that he loved her very much and was even willing to give her the throne. He did not know that this was not the main problem at all, and Rukalis gently stated that this was not proof that he loved her. The girl proudly said that giving up the throne is something that can be done without love. Rukalis reminded him that even when she was in Zeus's bedroom, her father hadn't said anything. Hades always believed that love is something you can hold in your hands. Therefore, now his daughter shed bitter tears, asking him if he really loved her. Then the girl quietly asked him if he really saw her as a replacement for Persephone. Everything she considered an expression of his love became only a reason for doubt. She remembered that day when her lover hated him, saying that the one who suffered for his love was none other than her. Father Rukalis had no idea that if you pluck a flower, you will definitely condemn it to death. The god of the underworld remembered the day he first saw his beloved. He believed that everything happened in a second when he saw the goddess of spring laughing among the flowers. Hades had never experienced such a strong feeling and was as if enchanted by her beauty. He took her to the underworld and chained her, and Persephone kept telling him not to deceive himself, because this is not love at all. The girl tried to convey to him that he was just trying to chain her to him. Persephone was his favorite flower, which he unknowingly picked, and now he heard her pleas to release her to the surface. In a fit of anger, the god of the underworld fed her a small piece of sour fruit. He thought she was his from the beginning, so he gave her a pomegranate seed from the underworld. Because if you eat something from this world, you will be trapped in it forever. Persephone could not believe that the god of the underworld resorted to such a trick. She tried every method to get the object out of him, but nothing worked. Hades felt no regret or remorse, because one does not apologize to property. But when he regretted it, it was already too late. The fairies of Olympus whispered that the young goddess of resurrection spent the night in the bedroom of Zeus himself. The god of the underworld, unknowingly, overheard their conversation, and at that moment realized that this was his punishment. He returned to his room and reasoned that if he hadn't done this to the goddess of spring, if he hadn't acted like an idiot, then everything would have been different. Father Rukalis could not contradict Zeus, who helped him in the kidnapping of the goddess of spring. His only concern was having led his son, for whom he wished the best, into a trap. Now, sitting in the chariot, Hades told his daughter that he had never thought of her as a replacement, because he loved her. The father added that he had never loved anyone as much as he loved his daughter, and said that he wanted her to always be with him. Without thinking for long, he declared that even if she were not Persephone's daughter, he would still love her. The god of the underworld added to his words that even if she didn't look like her mother, he would still love her. The girl listened carefully to her father's story and observed the reaction on his face. Hades said that he never thought that something would change if he told her this, but that he always loved her. Turning to his daughter, he saw that she was bowing her head and not answering him. After a short pause, Rukalis understood his face and said that this changes a lot. Smiling and trying to hide her tears, she said that if she hadn't heard this, she would have been unhappy forever. The young goddess of resurrection joyfully thanked her father for the words he had spoken to her. After a frank conversation, Ada's daughter mockingly clarified if they were going in the right direction, to which her father replied affirmatively. The image of Persephone still wandered in the thoughts of the little princess of the underworld. This image asked her if she really thought that her father's love was the right love. The fairies in the underworld talked about the possibility that Rukalis might remain in Olympus. One of them was worried about never hearing her stupid laughter again. Oises unknowingly witnessed this conversation and could not believe what she heard. Many rumors spread about the young goddess. So now the goddess of sorrow believed that she should have silenced Hermes for constantly singing songs about Olympus. One Eros trembled and asked the other gods what they would do if their girl did not return. Oises nervously asked which of them is the god of worries, her or him, to which the god of dreams replied that he could not do anything about himself, because he was very worried. The god of death, Thanatos, entered the conversation and said that nothing could be done in this situation. He calmly said that if she didn't come, that would be the end, and then asked if they really wanted to kidnap her. His face filled with fear and indignation, which made all the present gods notice. Mom suggested that the underworld was not the best place for a young goddess to grow up, and Thanatos regretted that he should have gone with them. The god of ridicule listed reasons such as the eternally depressed fairies of Styx. Instead of dolls, there are only skeletons, and the only entertainment is sword fights. Oises and Eris sadly reasoned that everything turned out to be much worse than everyone thought. Erebus stopped sitting silently and assured them that only Rukalis herself could decide where it was good and where it was bad. He assured everyone that the god of the underworld had not yet returned to them, and that, first of all, they should wait for him. Eris laughed and happily said that she and Thanatos were two boots in a pair, pretending that everything was fine. After a moment, she announced that the carriage had arrived, making the gods tremble even more with excitement. The young and cheerful goddess of resurrection ran into her room, shouting that she had finally returned home. Oises was the first to run to her and ask why she was so late. Suddenly, the girl stopped hugging her ward. She stepped back a little and began to examine her closely. Up close she noticed swollen eyes, a strong smell of alcohol, and a wrinkled dress. The goddess of sorrow shouted, asking why her charge had returned drunk. She bombarded the girl with questions about why her clothes were ragged, how much she drank, to which Rukalis noted that the gods did not miss her at all. Erebus told her that everyone was afraid that she would not return, so some went crazy. Oises shouted that the young goddess was the face of their kingdom, and Hades always appeared well-groomed everywhere, after which he asked why she looked completely different. The rest of the gods began to ask her if she liked Olympus, if it was very different from the underworld, to which she replied that that world was so full of luxuries that she really wanted to release a couple of hundred swans into the river Styx. Then, the girl imagined how terrified Karen would be at such an influx of birds. Oises severely noted that before her arrival, something else had arrived in the underworld. The young goddess assumed that Hephaestus had finally sent her a gift in the form of a golden maiden. The god of dreams, Hypnos, asked her if she was really happier with this than with her old acquaintances. He always loved to joke, so now he insisted that some golden maiden was more important to her than all the gods. The boy continued talking about how they raised her, to which she replied that he definitely never raised her, and in general, she grew up herself. While they were arguing among themselves, Thanatos' chief assistant invited him to go with him. The boy briefly described the situation that occurred in Olympus during these days. The god of death put an innocent smile on his face and informed everyone that the young goddess had done something on Olympus. Confused, she found no other way out than to report that she had simply overdone it with a little nectar. Then, the enraged Thanatos furiously asked her if her own feet had led her to Zeus's room. The girl frantically grabbed Hypnos, asking him not to leave her, and tried to calmly reply that she did not think they would find out about this incident. The god of death approached her as closely as possible, breathing heavily, and about to seriously punish her. Thanatos glared at her and furiously asked what her last words would be. The girl fearfully replied that she was willing to endure the whipping, to which he replied that she should try to endure this pain. Thus ended her initiation. Not even 3 months had passed before Rukalis regretted her return to the underworld. the maidens searched for her throughout the castle, because immediately after the initiation, the gods are obliged to start with their duties, but Hades' daughter tried with all her might to avoid it. It seemed to her that the main problem was that those responsibilities were too many. The maids walked further down the corridor, and the young goddess sat on the floor and calmly exhaled, hoping that the trouble had passed her by. Watching them leave, she thought that she was doing too much and that she had been given too much work in such a short time. Suddenly, her thoughts were interrupted by a blow that missed her by only a couple of centimeters and hit the wall. In front of her was the golden girl that Hephaestus had given her, telling her that she needed to return and finish her work. In addition to the problem of fulfilling a large number of duties, the goddess of resurrection faced a much bigger problem in the form of the golden maiden Belita. The maidens heard the sound of the blow and hurried to find out what caused such a roar. Hephaestus's golden object could not control its power and could not adapt to the situation at all. The girl suggested that Belita should run away quickly, but the hand of the golden statue got stuck in the wall. So the maidens immediately found them. Made of gold, it was very beautiful, but unfortunately for its owner, it never left her alone. One day, Rukali was hiding from her in the closet, hoping that she wouldn't find her, because the palace was very large and it was impossible to turn it around. To the deep regret of Hades' daughter, Belita quickly discovered her lover. Opening the closet, the golden dresser said that while she was looking for her, her mistress was already late. Opening the closet door completely, Hephaestus told her that she had to go to work. He found the goddess of resurrection in absolutely any place, even in private places like the bathroom. The young goddess tried to hide on the roof of a castle in the underworld, but the golden maiden found her there too. Even when the girl was simply trying to relax in her bedroom, Belita was under the bed. And it was a constant reminder that her lover had pending business. Rukali's looked at the ceiling with a condemned expression and said that she couldn't do these things until her death. The golden statue replied that her lover was immortal, so she simply could not die. Belita was completely unaware of the meaning of the word commitment, so now the maidens observed the huge hole she left in the wall. One of them politely asked if her creator knew that she was destroying the palace he had built, and the other maiden decided to take the young goddess to fulfill her duties. As she left, the girl told the golden maiden that there was nothing in her but beauty. Gift Hephaestus gave her a thumbs up, thinking it was a compliment. The maiden hugged the enraged young goddess as she tried to run to prove to Belita that it was not a compliment. The girl shouted that as soon as possible she would flee the underworld. The messenger was running towards them as fast as he could, so when Rukali saw him, she immediately asked what had happened. The boy tried to catch his breath. Sweat appeared on his face, gathering strength. He said that Thanatos had brought Adonis. There was only one case where a living person came to the underworld at the invitation of the god of death. The messenger, tired but loudly, announced the sudden death of the guy for whom two goddesses were fighting. Not long ago, the subject of the dispute asked him not to resurrect him under any circumstances. So the young goddess knew that sooner or later this had to happen. However, upon hearing the unexpected news, she realized that everything happened much sooner than she expected. People behaved as if they were going to live forever, but in reality, their life was very short. This is what the young goddess thought while the maid dragged her by the neck. The girl understood that at that very moment, she could not imagine what would happen in the underworld. In the underground court, where the future of the dead was determined, the judge announced to everyone that everyone was guilty. One of them tried to explain that there was a mistake and that he was not guilty at all. The three heads of the judge looked at the speaker at the same time and asked him if he really had any objection. Because of such a bad look, the man could not say a word, to which the judge continued to tell him to leave the room, because he had a lot to do. Rukali sat right above the judge and observed the entire process, after which she loudly wondered if they could not declare everyone guilty at the same time. The three pairs of eyes of the judge turned furiously towards the young goddess who had spoken, making her feel uncomfortable. Hades' daughter apologized and thought that they had sharpened their hearing as always. The girl continued to observe the judicial process. I wanted to wait for the decision regarding Adonis. Recalling the last day she spent with Adonis, Rukali's wondered if she regretted asking not to be resurrected. Thanatos, who approached her, calmly said that the subject of her expectations was the first to volunteer for the underground court. Seeing her surprised expression, the god of death said that while she was avoiding her duties, he finished everything before the trial. The girl smiled sweetly and said that was the reason he came to her. The boy ignored this and only strictly punished her so that she wouldn't be lazy either. After which he told her there was something unexpected, because when this guy arrived, he thought the deceased would make a lot of noise, but surprisingly, he was very quiet. The goddess of resurrection grabbed the god of death by the sleeve and exclaimed loudly that he was as busy as ever. She then added that as soon as one dies, they immediately resume their work. A golden maiden appeared at the court door, clearly looking for her lover. Belita did not stand on ceremony and began to loudly inform the entire hall why she had come to them. Hephaestus's gift announced that Lady Demeter had invited Lady Rucalis to Elysium. Demeter is the patroness of the harvest, the goddess of the earth, and most importantly, Persephone's mother. Among all the gods of Olympus, she valued blood ties above all else, and especially her daughter. That is why, when her daughter disappeared from the human world, the goddess of the earth became very sad. She wandered and could not find a place for herself, trying to understand what happened to Persephone. The goddess of the earth withdrew from agricultural work, so the land became barren, after which a long winter began on earth. People starved because they could not grow their own food, and animals died of hunger. Many hoped for the early arrival of spring, and this thought gave them hope. But in the end, people died. Then Zeus descended to the earthly world and saw that at this rate, all people would starve to death. Zeus, who concealed the fact that Hades stole Persephone, finally revealed the secret to Demeter. It was too late, because by then his daughter had already eaten the fruit of the underworld. Demeter realized that for the underworld, this was just another form of entertainment. She hugged her daughter, cried, and said that if she had understood everything sooner, she could have come to the rescue in time. The mother was too weak to punish them, so she sometimes went down to the underworld to see her daughter. And her granddaughter, the goddess of the earth, was always very kind to Persephone, telling her how beautiful she was becoming every day. One day she would say that Rucali resembled her mother, and the next she would slap her. In moments of anger, Demeter told the young goddess that Tanya was the only one who dared to stare at her, and called her an unwanted child. Heading to Elysium, the goddess of resurrection told Thanatos that she felt very uncomfortable. She added that her grandmother is sometimes kind and sometimes mean to her, so she doesn't know which side of her to face this time. The boy replied that she simply couldn't go to Elysium because she wasn't obliged to accept the invitation. Ada's daughter stretched tiredly and said that since she was invited, why not come? Hearing her answer, the god of death stated that the girl only wanted to reach Elysium, to which she replied affirmatively. Seeing her thoughtful face, he explained that Elysium was a place created specifically for the souls of heroes, and therefore, it was the only paradise in the entire underground realm. After which Rucalis added that if the opportunity arose to go there, she would definitely take it. The god of death looked closely at the very happy face of his little companion and found no words to answer her. In the end, he said she was free to do whatever she wanted, to which she replied that even if she were hit in the face, she would be happy to have visited Elysium. The boy tried to stop her, saying that if such punishment awaited her, then she shouldn't go there. But the girl didn't listen to him at all and headed towards the golden gates. Seeing the gates close behind her, she waved her hand tiredly and advised him to be careful. The door slammed shut, after which he thought how nice it would be if she didn't fight with anyone. A moment later, a loud sound of surprise was heard throughout Elysium, which seriously scared Thanatos. There was only one reason for Rucalis's scream. Elysium, where Persephone lived, was so beautiful that she couldn't contain her scream. She reasoned aloud that the brilliance of the gold in this place was even more beautiful than in Olympus itself. The girl couldn't believe that her mother saw this beauty every day, and thought that this was truly a worthy place to ask Hades for it. Then she picked up a golden pear and admired it for a while, but the fairy accompanying her reminded her that Persephone and Demeter were waiting for her. This did not stop the young goddess, so she collected all sorts of fruits on the way to her mother. Upon entering the greenhouse, the first thing Rucalis did was happily greet her mother. A beautiful scarlet flower was inserted into the hair of Hades's daughter. Her mood was magnificent. Her fun was interrupted by Persephone's rude voice, notifying her that she was very late. Seeing Demeter drinking tea, the girl thought how lucky she was that Adonis was not among them. 3 goddesses and 1 person would not create very good rumors in the underworld. After a brief silence, the guest politely greeted her grandmother Demeter. In response to this, the goddess of the earth asked her granddaughter to tell her what she had been doing lately. Rucalis replied in a good mood that she was constantly busy with work, to which Persephone reported that she didn't feel she had much work to do. The girl sarcastically replied that so many urgent matters arose because the place above was empty. Trying to hide her indignation, her mother asked if she had any hobbies, and then suggested that she wasn't interested in drinking tea or ikebana. The goddess of resurrection happily said that when she has time, she likes to ride Cerberus or play with skeletons. The woman noted that those were not the best hobbies for the young goddess, to which Rucalis replied that they were not the worst. Persephone quickly got tired of small talk, so she suggested moving from words to action. While taking a sip of tea, she asked if her daughter could guess what she wanted to ask her. Taking a cup of tea, the young goddess mockingly replied that she did not have the gift of mind reading. After that, she looked mysteriously at her mother and told her that she could tell her herself what she wanted. Giving in to those she had always despised was not so easy, especially if you are a goddess you have only worshipped your whole life. Gathering courage, Persephone reported that her beloved Adonis had ended up in the underworld. After a short pause, she continued and asked her daughter not to resurrect the object of her love. Hades's daughter was a little disappointed to have confessed so honestly, because that's how much Persephone valued Adonis. The girl decided to clarify if it was an order, to which the goddess of spring replied that it was only a small request. Hearing her response, Rucalis said she had the power to refuse her request, but her mother said it would be better if she listened when she asked. The goddess of the earth intervened in the conversation, trying to silence her only granddaughter. The young goddess unnerved everyone, saying that they were really going to give her orders with her useless real name. After which she added, so that they wouldn't be mistaken, that although she is small, her status in the underworld is no less than her mother's. The angry Demeter rose from her chair, but Hades's daughter explained that this was a matter of the underworld. The goddess of the earth became increasingly indignant with every passing second, which was evident from her facial expression. The girl added that this is not Zeus's business, so he cannot interfere in the affairs of a world that is not his own. Persephone interrupted her speech and said that, if you believe her words then, according to the laws of the underworld, there is one more circumstance. The woman said that her pathetic authority should be much greater than her daughter's. Looking angrily at the young goddess of resurrection, the mother menacingly said that she was the queen of the underworld. Persephone looked quite pathetic, so Rucalis always considered her mother oppressed and lost her support. Her mother often spoke of how much she missed her daughter and the god of the underworld. However, when she saw the young goddess, she always got very angry, and the girl couldn't change any of this. Persephone often reminded Rucalis that she had told her to stay out of sight. Because the older she got, the more she resembled her father. The woman always regretted not having killed her son on his birthday. As much as the mother hated her daughter, her father loved Rucalis so much. It's just that he always called his daughter by her name and never wanted to erase her from the face of the earth. Therefore, the girl always clung to the crumbs of her father's love, which she so rarely received. She knew that if she didn't preserve this love, her birth would be meaningless. Now, sitting at the table with Persephone and Demeter, the young goddess said that her mother gave up her crown because she didn't want her. She then added that she had renounced her throne and responsibilities, and now she was pointing at her with her special powers. After which she clarified if she really considered herself a queen. The girl reasoned that only a shell of this status remained for her mother. She said that the fact that Persephone could share Adonis with the goddess of beauty Aphrodite was all thanks to Hades. Piety and mercy could be an excellent shield to protect the goddess of spring. Hades's daughter calmly said that if she renounced her royal duties and throne, she must also renounce royal power and authority. One day, the fairies of the underworld said they hadn't seen Persephone in a long time. So, the girl put on a sweet face and asked them the difficult question of whether they really hadn't had enough of her. The girl explained to the young goddess that the point was that the world reputation of the underworld depended on its king and its queen. Later she realized that, of course, Persephone didn't care at all. The goddess of resurrection thought that her mother neglected everything except what she herself wanted. Rucalis informed her that if she wanted revenge, she should put the edge of a knife to her father's throat, because others had no reason to endure her anger or sadness. The girl remembered how long ago she had seen the god of the underworld working in his office. It was incomprehensible and unpleasant to her that her own mother could not face her feelings. Persephone looked at her daughter and couldn't believe she was trying to teach her. The young goddess smiled sweetly and said it was just good advice. Her mother jumped up from her seat, put her hands on the table, and angrily said she had a lot of nerve. Demeter intervened in the conversation again, saying that this conversation should end. The ground in all of Elysian suddenly trembled, and the goddess of the earth became angry and caused an earthquake. Rukalis watched all this and thought that her grandmother was angry to the sparks in her eyes. The goddess of spring tried to stop her mother, saying that there was still something to say. Demeter calmly noted that the servants saw everything, and if she continued to talk about her royal status, she would keep raising her voice. Hades's daughter applauded and announced that they had spoken, and now she could return to her business with peace of mind. As she tried to leave the greenhouse, she was stopped by her own mother's voice, begging her to wait. The distressed woman asked if the young goddess was really going to resurrect Adonis. The girl sincerely replied that Aphrodite had really asked about it. She then added that she was very lazy, so she would not bring up the subject of their dispute. Having calmed her mother with these words, Rukali said that the grandmother should decide all other matters herself. After that, the young goddess of resurrection returned to the underworld. Before leaving, she stopped at the door and finally decided to tell Persephone what she was thinking. The girl spoke of her father, who tied her to himself, hiding behind his love. After which, she stated that the goddess of spring did the same, locking Adonis in Elysium for her love. Turning to them, Rukali smiled sweetly and said that in the eyes of the people they look the same. The young girl angrily said that unlike her, who only avoids everything, Adonis simply gave up and accepted it. Persephone's body filled with terrible resentment towards her daughter. The woman stepped forward, put her hand to her chest, and loudly declared that she was not like that at all. Demira tried to stop her daughter while shouting that she and Adonis loved each other. Elysian is the only paradise in the underworld. Although it is an enviable place, it was only good for those who tried to escape reality. Persephone couldn't hold back tears for long, because somewhere deep in her soul, she understood well that this was the cruel truth. After everything that happened, the girl went fishing in the Styx River, where Hermes found her. To his question about whether he and Persephone really fought, the young goddess replied that if he hadn't started the rumors, she would have answered him. God knows. She continued to smile cheerfully at him, awaiting an answer to his question. She then added that she had heard that Demeter turned the earth upside down. Rukali's moderately replied that of course they had quarreled, but they hadn't fought, and that the goddess of the earth had caused a small earthquake. The boy said he was really worried, to which the girl caught a fish with a skull on its head, and in response asked him if he was worried about her mother. A drop of sweat ran down Hermes's face, and he tried to discreetly ask her why she decided that. The young goddess calmly commented that she didn't care, and then asked him if he really wasn't worried about her. God knows that he liked Persephone when he was very small, to which the girl asked him to tell this about the Styx River. She decided to move the topic away from herself, and clarified that hides did not react in any way to what happened. As she removed the skull from the fish, she confirmed his assumption, suggesting that her father was so busy that he hadn't found out. Hermes noted that if he knew, Hades would most likely know, and then asked her if she would simply remain silent about it. The girl laughed heartily and said that the god of the underworld was not that person at all. Suddenly, the young goddess began to think that her business with Persephone was not over yet. After thinking for a while, she loudly asked what she should do if her father hated her. Hermes tried to calm her down by telling her that they had to resolve this matter after the ceremony, to which she replied that Hades said he loved her. To his question of why she was afraid then, the young goddess said that maybe he would stop loving her when he found out what she had done in Elysian. Rukali's continued to sit sullenly on the riverbank, and God knows looked at her questioningly. Breaking the silence, he asked if love really should disappear because of something like that, and why she worries so much about it every day. Then, he suggested she go to her father and ask again, to which she replied that it had been a long time since her father loved her mother. The girl said she didn't know how childish the question of which side he would take would sound. After a while, she was already standing near the door of the underworld god's office. Gathering her will into a fist, the young goddess decided that she still had to ask one more time. Hades's office was located in the most remote place of the main palace of the underworld. The young goddess passed the bookshelves and reasoned that it was time to ask. Then her gaze fell upon a beautiful gold bracelet with sapphires that she saw for the first time. It was an indescribably beautiful place that seemed like a treasure cave to Rukali's. Passing by them, she picked up everything that caught her eye, happy that everything looked much better on her hand. Approaching her father's desk, the girl saw a small plant under a dome. After examining it closely, she wondered if her father really liked growing flowers. Getting closer, the young goddess reasoned that, judging by the artificially created light, Hades was protecting this plant. Her father approached the office, wondering why the guard was completely beaten up and lying on the floor. Upon entering, he found his daughter there, who pretended not to have touched or done anything in his absence. To his question of why she did this to the guard, the girl replied that she didn't realize at all how he fell. Rukali's held a small piece of that plant in her hand, listening to her father's speech that next time she shouldn't cut it, but simply warn him in advance about her arrival. The god of the underworld approached his daughter, knelt down, and asked her why she had come to his office. Suddenly, she remembered what questions she was asking in the office of the god of the underworld. The young goddess thought about asking him if he was angry because she spoke with her mother in Elysian. She understood that she couldn't be sure, so she put on a sweet face and said she missed her father very much. The girl froze because the same gold bracelet with sapphires fell from her hand. Hades looked at the object with alarm and said confusedly that if she wanted to take it, she could take it. The goddess of resurrection was happy and nervous at the same time, thanking her father for such generosity. The god of the underworld calmly asked her if she wanted anything else, to which Rukali's replied that she wanted many things. He allowed her to walk around the office and take whatever she wanted, but the girl's hand quickly stopped him. And the daughter herself said that she hadn't come for that at all. She quickly recovered and loudly announced that she wanted to ask something completely different. Covering her birth with her small hand, the girl tried to suppress her growing excitement. The young goddess blurted out the question of whom he loved more, her or Persephone. The girl didn't immediately realize that her hand was still on her father's face, but then she instantly withdrew it. Hades, bewildered, said he loved them equally, to which Rukali's replied that she didn't mean that. She worriedly asked whom he would save first if both were in trouble. The god of the underworld didn't know what to answer for a long time, after which he tried to find the right words. He looked her straight in the eyes and asked with interest if she was really affected by what happened in Elysian. Her father told her that he already knew what happened there, because there was an earthquake and he was informed of everything. Hades asked if Persephone really asked not to resurrect her lover. Hearing an affirmative answer, he abruptly stood up and went to his work chair. Sitting at the table, the god of the underworld took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and tried to calm down. The girl felt that she had made a big mistake and considered herself stupid for it. She thought that her father loved her mother very much, so she believed he could exile her to Tartarus forever. Instead of scolding her, her father approached her, placed his hand on her head, and told her that if they treated her badly because of her, then she shouldn't put up with it. Hades said that they were taking out their anger on his small, young goddess. He then calmly added that his daughter did not deserve all this anger and malice. The young one, inspired, asked if her mother started such a fight again, he would smash her. The god of the underworld calmly noted that it was too strong a word. But generally she was right. The young goddess jumped with joy, saying she should have asked this much earlier, and Hyde sighed with relief. He added that, to answer the question asked, he would have saved Persephone first. The father said this with an extremely calm face, as if he thought this answer would suit her well. Deep down, she was indignant, but she smiled sweetly and said that she understood that he loved her mother more. Leaning back in his chair, the god of the underworld told her that he didn't believe that at all. He said that, of course, he loved Persephone, but that was not the reason he would save her first. Hades explained that he simply felt guilty towards her for everything he put her through. The father added that, if this caused him to be late in rescuing his daughter and she drowned, then he would choose to die with her. The girl was completely stunned by her father's shocking words. Hades said that if Persephone dies, he will simply accept it and continue living. But if she dies, he will not be able to live anymore. Rukali's wiped the tears from her face, which greatly scared her father, who asked her if she was not happy with his answer. The young goddess removed her hand from her face, smiled radiantly, and said she was very happy with the answer. The guard who was beaten by Hades's daughter was also very satisfied with the outcome of their dialogue. The girl, the goddess of resurrection Rukali's, daughter of Hades and Persephone, was the tyrant of the underworld. Seeing her familiar ferryman in the distance, she shouted friendlily for him to swim to her. The young goddess asked him what he thought about someone being willing to die for her. Sitting among the dead, she reasoned that this was nothing more than a direct declaration of love. Hades's daughter sighed and said that her father considered his daughter to be the only one, and that he was willing to die for her. Climbing onto the neck of one of the dead, she concluded that everything seemed like a wonderful dream. Rukalis was delighted to have finally understood what this love everyone talks about is. Karen reported that even one who did not believe in love suddenly started talking about it. The girl imagined that her father would take such good care of her that she would completely forget about her reputation. The carrier reminded her of Hermes, with whom approximately the same situation happened. After a brief silence, he added that she hadn't said anything about the trip to Elysian. Grabbing the hair of the unfortunate deceased tightly, the young goddess coldly said that she shouldn't have gone there. And nothing happened there. At her words, Karen turned around and asked her with interest if she had caused trouble there. Rukalis got off the neck of the dead man, inflicting another dose of pain on him, and repeating that maybe she had argued a little. Or maybe not. To his question about what she meant, the carrier replied that everything needs moderation. Many sparks flew between them, and the corpses sitting on the boat were afraid of dying again. Deciding to change the subject, the girl said she had brought something cool and took a twig out of her pocket, taken from her father's office. Boarding the boat, she said she found it in the god of the underworld's office, but she had no idea what it was. Karen looked at the plant and decided that it was most likely from the underworld. Rukalis asked him, bewildered, why she hadn't seen such a plant before. The carrier replied that, of course, the girl couldn't see it, because Persephone had forbidden her. Realizing all the information she had heard, she sharply asked if she correctly understood that everything was her mother's fault. Karen answered her question affirmatively and explained that it was quite a long story. The king of the underworld, with a frozen heart, stole the daughter of the goddess of fertility and hid her in his house. Thanks to him, a fierce winter began on the surface, where people blamed Hades for everything. People considered him the culprit of all their troubles, and many gods said that even if Olympus had collapsed, he still wouldn't have been able to conquer her love. Everyone knew that the heart of the goddess of spring had turned to stone quite some time ago. The goddess always considered him a source of misfortune, but he could not make her happy, and only remained silent. Persephone bitterly regretted meeting the god of the underworld. Realizing that she was most likely not that sad, the woman couldn't stop crying. One day, her heart of stone began to crumble little by little when a fairy confessed her love to him. She told him that she wasn't asking for reciprocity, but simply wished him happiness. The fairy said that she wished with all her heart that he would not know trouble and not taste sorrows. Light brown hair, bright green eyes, reminded him of someone he loved. Of course, the fairy reminded him of Persephone, who, before all these events, sometimes even took care of him. After making him a crown, the goddess of spring argued with the fairy whether she was too thin. Looking at his beloved, Hades saw in her a flower that was the most beautiful of all. Therefore, upon meeting the fairy, the god of the underworld realized with horror that she was like two peas in a pod like Persephone. But he fell in love with him even before the goddess of spring destroyed it. The fairy often watched him and was always friendly to him, rejoicing in every moment she could see him. Upon learning of this, Persephone told Hades that many people said he had a special relationship with a fairy. She then explained why he says he loves her, but thinks of other women. With a smile that didn't have a drop of pity, the woman asked if her broken life wasn't enough for him. The god of the underworld knelt before her and told her that he was willing to do a lot. His only request was that Persephone leave the unfortunate fairy alone. The woman expected him to say this, after which she slapped him and told him he couldn't hear her at all. She reminded him how she once asked him in the same way, on her knees, to leave her alone. But he played deaf. The goddess of spring could not forgive him for mocking and intimidating her, and now he himself was going to live happily. Persephone couldn't let Hades be happy, so she said that since she couldn't kill him, she could kill her. She grabbed him by the clothes. She kept crying and talking about how he wouldn't let her be happy. It has been a long time since Hades learned about the death of his beloved fairy. Rukalis said she would like to see the face of her mother, with which she said all these words. Karen said that now this was not important at all, but Ada's daughter believed it was that important, and she was interested to know what relationship this fairy had with the plant in her father's office. Putting the sprout between her lips, the young goddess heard that the name of this plant was mint, and then Karen said that it grew on the grave of a murdered fairy. Then Persephone's anger flared up even more. She added that Hades collected his beloved fairy's body piece by piece and turned it into a plant. The carrier stated that Persephone didn't like this and wanted to get rid of this plant in the underworld. Holding a sprig of mint in her hands, the girl thought that her own father had grown it and had secretly cared for it in his office. After thinking for a while, Rukali said that in the first place on her father's list was her mother. In second place was the fairy, and in third place was her. Karen told her that she draws conclusions very easily, but Hades did not like that fairy. To his question of why he called her his lover, the carrier replied that people become special to someone not only out of love. The girl wrapped her arms around her knees and said that there was something between them. Then her mother did what she did. The man explained to her that focusing on the small things is what characterizes her like her father. The young goddess smiled sweetly and sternly asked him if he was really making fun of her now. Having received an affirmative answer, she attacked the carrier with a loud shriek. Biting him on the shoulder, Rukali's heard him say that she shouldn't take Hades's words about love as a frivolous joke. Hanging from his neck, she said she knew it and only wanted to win him over. Meanwhile, Hercules performed the remaining tasks and said he had very little left. Taking active measures, the young goddess of resurrection began planting mint in the underworld. Velita seriously asked her if something bad would happen if the goddess Persephone found out about this. The girl said she had nothing to fear from her mother. Her father had been very kind to her lately, so he wouldn't get angry if she slightly angered her mother. The young goddess said she had received many gifts from Hades, and now it was her turn. She didn't finish speaking because she saw a man carrying Cerberus. Rukali's couldn't believe what she saw, and above all, didn't understand why someone was carrying the dog in their arms. But soon she smelled a strange smell of a living person coming from the stranger. The boy approached them and asked why those girls were walking alone, to which the girl asked him a counter-question. Who was he? The stranger was very surprised to learn that she really didn't know who he was. Suddenly, his words reached the young goddess, who called her baby, so discontent erupted in her. Before them stood the mighty Hercules, born of Zeus and a human woman. He was breastfed by Hera, so he received an immortal body and became a great hero. But to the goddess herself, he was just the fruit of immorality, so several decades later, she continued to watch how happily the man she hated lived. Dissatisfied with the fact that he had built a happy family, the goddess Hera decided to drive Hercules mad. Her plan was a success because the man unknowingly killed his entire family, including the small children. When he recovered, the murders had already been committed, and his friend was trying to bring him to his senses. He shook him with all his might, praying for his friend to wake up quickly. But Hercules could only cry. A friend told him that there was a way to erase this crime, so he should go to the temple of Delphi right now and pray to the gods for help. Having arrived at the gods and repenting the murder of his family, the man received the task of performing 12 tasks, which were Hera's responsibility. Now he told the young goddess that he had already completed 11 tasks, and the last one was to catch Cerberus. The girl angrily lamented who he called a girl, because it is obvious that she is a goddess. Looking at her, the boy didn't understand why this insect spoke so loudly. Rukali's menacingly asked what kind of Hercules he was and what kind of feats he was talking about. Starting to use magic, he said that the surface world was very large, so he couldn't know her name. Unexpectedly for everyone, the young goddess shot her magic at him, shouting that people like him should be taught a lesson once. The magic ball flew straight into the young man's chest. He didn't even try to dodge it. Suddenly the ball evaporated, and no trace of her magic remained on Hercules, which greatly surprised Hades's daughter. The goddess, who lived only in the underworld of course, could not know who Hercules was. Walking towards the castle, she reasoned that apparently Hermes had told her something like that. Something about a half-breed younger brother. The boy calmly listened to her story, that for a man it is not bad in divine matters. He thought that she was probably an inferior goddess without special powers, but she spoke so impressively about the 12 superior gods. The girl said that Zeus's fertility shouldn't surprise her, but maybe if she were Hera's son, it would be more interesting. Hercules thought that, judging by the fact that she had powers, she was definitely a goddess, but he couldn't understand what she was a goddess of. He decided that he needed to leave that place quickly, so he asked her if she would go with him. The young goddess indignantly asked if he was really going to take Cerberus without Hades's permission. The boy cheerfully said that he had already received this permission a long time ago, so he was ready to take Cerberus to the earthly realm. When he first arrived, he visited the god of the underworld with a question about Cerberus. Hercules told him that as soon as he completed the task, he would immediately return him to his place. Hades thought for a moment and said that if the guy could take him, he could take him. Now he told the girl that the god of the underworld himself recognized his powers. The guy thought that, fortunately, Hades didn't think he would really take him with his own hands. He said he would return the dog as soon as he finished his business, so he advised her not to worry. Rebirth saw that the stranger was not moving at all because there was a wall in front of him. Without thinking twice, Hercules said that he had completely forgotten the structure of this place, so he always stumbles upon dead ends. He began to reach out his hand, and the girl, fearful, asked him why he was doing this. The future hero of Olympus was famous for something else, but the young goddess didn't know it. Having run, he directed his hand towards the wall and hit it with all his might. Because of his blow, the wall began to move and gradually collapsed into small pieces. Everyone knew that the boy never listened to what the gods told him and did what he thought was right. In the underworld, Hephaestus built almost everything, including the castle in which Hercules broke the wall. Therefore, now the young goddess could not contain her anger and shouted that he had really decided to look for an exit. The boy mockingly replied that he had no need to look for it because he had superhuman strength. The Golden Maiden was delighted with his strength and gave him 200 100s, and Hades's daughter was very dumbfounded. She shouted at the top of her lungs that he was crazy. Her scream could be heard even outside the castle, and the fairies decided that their ward was in good health. Arriving at one of the corridors where he could rest, Hercules sighed deeply. Unexpectedly, he saw his friend sitting on the sofa, who advised him to go pray to the gods. This was the same man who shook Hercules with all his might to bring him to his senses, Hades's sofa of oblivion, on which, if someone sits, they will not be able to leave oblivion until they get up. However, if a person sits down, they will no longer be able to get up even with force. As a result, this place becomes a curse from which he will not be able to get rid of until his death. Hercules didn't care, so he grabbed his friend and lifted him up, tearing off his butt and the flesh. Of course, he knew nothing about this secret object, because he had just arrived in the underworld. Hercules began to examine the wounded man, thinking that no divine power could compare to the brutal methods of the hero. The boy was glad that his friend had regained consciousness and wanted to lift the second person from the sofa. But the girl quickly stopped him. She stated that this man wanted to marry Persephone, so this conspirator could not be released. Hercules listened to him attentively and declared that he did not wish to help the enemy god of the underworld. Sitting with his friend, he said with satisfaction that saving Theseus was enough for him. Leaning on him, the guy asked if his friend had gotten into any trouble, to which the man replied that he seemed to have been beaten with all his might. And as if they were torturing him, the girl, unknowingly, overheard their conversation, and the boy asked her if her friend remembered who did this to him. Of course, the culprit was Hercules, who kicked these people for a long time, but his friend said he didn't remember anything. Feeling guilty, Hades's daughter offered him help with resurrection and restored his face, and his butt stopped bleeding. As he walked through the underworld, Theseus said that it was indeed a wonderful place. But suddenly a black shadow moved towards him, indicating that it could smell a living person. Turning in his direction, the man could see her completely, and the shadow continued to say that a fresh smell emanated from him. Hercules's friend trembled and asked what kind of spirits they were, and if they really wanted to harm him. The girl looked at him severely and said that she was a goddess and did not understand how they treated people. Theseus immediately ran to Hercules and told him that they should go with him. The future hero of Olympus turned to the young goddess. He asked her to be quiet and asked how long the baby would follow behind them. They looked at each other with contempt, and Theseus said that his friend was a bit sharp-tongued. Hercules asked the boy if he had said everything, and wondered if he was really tired of all these eternal little ones. She added that even if she had 1,000 years of life behind her, she wouldn't dare be rude to her. Smiling sweetly, the young goddess said that when she gets old and sick, she will crawl to her for help. All this time, Theseus tried to explain to her that Hercules saw the exit and ran towards it. Pursing her lips, she indignantly asked why he was only telling her this now. The tearful man, with regret in his voice, said that she was forcing his speech. The Golden Maiden approached her and asked if she would really follow them forever. The angry girl said she would chase them until she got tired of doing it. The exit was the place where the path between the two worlds is located. A golden light emanated from there that does not exist anywhere else in the underworld. Rukalis had no idea where this could lead her. All she wanted was not to regret, and to have a fun first adventure in the human realm. In the temple of Aphrodite, the goddess was squatting, biting her nails, and constantly repeating that she was the first. She told her son that Adonis was hers, since she was the first, and Persephone stole her man. And if she weren't the queen of the underworld, she wouldn't have allowed him to even look at him. Eros looked at his mother with pity, but when she turned to him, he saw madness in her eyes. Aphrodite quietly asked if her beloved son had finally come to her. A long time ago, the Moirai predicted that the children of Gaia, half-human giants, half-snakes, would invade Olympus. Only one hero, born from the union of Zeus and an earthly girl, can resist them. So in this world appeared the future heroes of Olympus Hercules, who possess remarkable strength. Zeus drank wine with Hades and asked him if his son had borrowed Cerberus. The god of the rising world, with sadness in his voice, said that he didn't believe a person was capable of defeating Cerberus. The supreme god told him that this was a hero who was destined to lead them in the war against the giants. So he was not like everyone else. Zeus already knew what he wanted, but pretended to be surprised that she gave him 12 instructions at once. Seeing the adult Hercules, the goddess Hera didn't believe that he was the one called the savior of Olympus. Deciding that he was not worthy of her mercy, she assigned him 12 tasks, telling him that he could handle them easily. As she knew that Hercules would be at the head of the real battle, he had to complete his tasks, which were beyond the power of a man, so that he could win. Now Hades was thinking if Zeus was really going to feel sorry and watch everything from the side. After which, he asked if the supreme god thought he was too frivolous. Zeus mockingly replied that the Moirai needed his seed, and that they needed a hero. So he killed Hercules. Then he said that since such an opportunity presented itself, he decided to do it with the beautiful one. The god of the underworld said that, in any case, Hercules must be warned not to bother the gods while performing his tasks. Zeus thanked him for his concern and asked him to visit Olympus more often. Before Hades left, he added that he would provide him with beauties who would help him forget Persephone. Upon returning to the underworld, Rukalis' father was very angry because a little man had taken his princess with him. Charon and Thanatos humbly looked at the ground, unable to find words to justify their actions. The carrier said that the man told him that he had received instructions from Hermes and protection from the goddess Athena, and that it was reckless of him to put a living person on a boat and transport her across the Styx River. After hearing this, the god of the underworld said that for this offense he sentenced him to a 1-year punishment with iron chains. Oises tried to intervene, reminding the angry Hades exactly how long a year is considered in the underworld. God furiously interrupted her, saying that they, through inaction in such a situation, did not feel their role in the absence of their daughter. Trying to calm down, he turned to the god of death Thanatos and the god of dreams Oneros. Rukalis' father ordered them to find the princess by any means, and for this he provided me with his golden helmet, which would help me attract people's attention. At the same time, the young goddess enjoyed the beauty of the earthly realm along with her new acquaintances. Theseus said he didn't believe she would go out with them, to which she replied with a question about who he took her for. Turning to the sleeping Hercules, he stated that underground everyone calls her beautiful, but he considers her a chatty little thing, so she is obliged to show her greatness to someone like him. Looking at him angrily, Rukalis told him that when she needed his help, he crawled to her on his knees and begged him to just leave. Having calmed down, the girl stated that she herself had always been interested in visiting this world. Seeing the trial, she wondered why the dead were crying. She believed that they, like others, would eventually get used to life in the underworld. The dead cannot forget their earthly life. They cannot throw away the things they used during life. No matter how accustomed they are to life underground, people will always miss life on the surface. Lying on the ground, the young goddess said that this was why she was going with them, even if it was impulsive. Looking at the sky, she saw countless bright stars and only thought about how beautiful this place was. Raising her hand, the girl decided that even if the lights in the sky didn't shine like diamonds, they were still very beautiful. Noticing that the starry sky reminded her of her father's hair, she began to realize that her heart ached because she left without telling her father anything. At the same time, the god of the underworld was seriously worried about his daughter's well-being. To confirm that Hercules completed the 12 tasks, he needed to show them to King Cerberus of Turin's, and then they would be considered complete. Naturally, they were still very far from Turin's, so they immediately set off at dawn. The guy turned to Theseus and asked if he could talk about something other than legends about heroes, because he spent a long time in the underworld. His friend replied that he had been in oblivion all this time, so he didn't remember anything. Frustrated, Hercules begged him to come up with something, because he was very bored. So Theseus decided to tell him that, when I first found myself in the underworld, the ferryman told him that Hades had given birth to a daughter. Then he added that since then the girl had never been in the realm of surface people. Hercules was inspired and asked with interest if this goddess was beautiful, to which he received the answer that his friend knew he would ask that. The boy proudly declared that athletes usually like beauties, and Theseus replied that he was too bold. The future heroine of Olympus imagined that if she was Persephone's daughter, then her face couldn't be ugly. But then she remembered that she was Hades' daughter, so she might look like him. Hercules reasoned that dark and menacing girls were not exactly his type, and a voice from behind replied that maybe he wasn't her type. The two finally realized that Hades' own daughter was traveling with them. The girl said that he should have understood this even when he was destroying the palace, because she was the only one who opposed this idea. The sad man asked if he should really immediately understand that such a small thing could be the goddess of the underworld. Rook-Halley smiled cheerfully and said that he probably didn't understand because he was a fool. The young goddess and the future heroes of Olympus exchanged sparks again with their eyes, after which fists were used. Theseus tried to stop Hercules, but he replied by asking why he only told him this. His friend said that she was, after all, Hades' daughter, to which the boy replied that she was not Hades himself. And besides, she didn't show her powers in any way, so he didn't think she was a goddess. Just before this, the young goddess was shouting that she thought they weren't going around. The boy angrily replied that since she was a goddess, she could summon some spirit of the road to show him the way. The girl suddenly had an epiphany that she could really do this, but then she realized they were making fun of her. Therefore, Hercules now reasoned that he did not believe that goddesses who knew nothing existed. Addressing him, Rook-Halley declared smugly that he should not deceive himself, because when he dies, she will exile him to Tartarus. The boy shamelessly told him that he couldn't do anything to him during his lifetime. They started exchanging sparks again, and the future hero of Olympus told her that if he died, he would bury her under the root of a tree. Theseus this time tried to calm them both, but the young goddess said she would crush him long before. Trying to pull the biting goddess away from the boy, Theseus told them they had things to do, and that now was not the time to fight. He added that they needed to know how much provisions they had on hand, and whether it would be enough for such a long journey. The fight ceased because both realized they had no food with them or money from anyone. Separating from Hercules, the girl zealously declared that she had a lot of money and jewelry in her room. Hercules naively asked if they couldn't just expel them by force, to which Theseus clarified if he was a thief and what his mother had to say about it. The boy raised his hand and said that after he killed Leela's teacher when he was a child, his mother didn't say anything to him. Then he offered to cut off the golden maiden's finger so they would have money, to which the young goddess angrily retorted that she wouldn't give up a single hair on her head. Theseus thought that a heroic thief, a daughter of Hades, and even a golden maiden were a problem, but they wouldn't even be allowed into the city with such a monster. While Hercules' friend was thinking, some robber archers stealthily approached from the forest. The first arrow slightly grazed Theseus' cheek, but flew past, after which they shouted at them to throw their weapons on the ground and hand over everything they had. A band of robbers, the Black Hurricane, mocked the fact that everywhere only Hercules was showing off. They argued that one of them looked like the one who would drive the officials crazy, and the other looked like the one who would attract the aristocrats. Seeing the young girl, the robbers immediately decided that the most valuable things were on the side. The archers talked about whether they could present this girl to the king, and supposed that it was better than the ones they had sold before. Their conversations suddenly fell silent because the guy threw something at them, after which they realized that he had sent a three-headed dog at them. Theseus said that if the hero killed them, it would be bad, so he decided to intimidate them into fleeing. Rook-Halley furiously shouted that the robbers should not be allowed to escape, because then rumors would spread. The commander of the robbers shouted that they should not think about the monster, but only about the money. Hercules said that there were many left, and at the same time, a plan matured in their heads to collect money from the robbers. White-skinned as snow, and with a small face, her brilliantly beautiful appearance had an unknown appeal. One of the robbers thought that someone would rape the girl anyway, so he decided to enjoy her first. Theseus fought with other robbers, thinking that, of course, they had different skills, but they couldn't win so easily against this gang. Seeing that even more robbers were descending towards them from the mountain, he tried to figure out how many there really were. After dealing with several, he noticed that Hercules was violently killing his opponents. The future hero of Olympus completely crushed the robber's head with his club. Looking at the bloody weapon, the son of Zeus and the earthly woman cursed, and said that there was too much dirt from the attackers. Theseus thought that his friend was literally in a bear's skin, and the robbers didn't realize that it was actually Hercules. Looking at the golden maiden, he asked why she stood aside and did nothing. At that very moment, the gang captured the young goddess of resurrection, ordering the others to surrender and throw down their weapons. Otherwise, they would kill her. Hercules chuckled with disgust and pretended not to be at all interested in what they were talking about. Seeing this, the robber shouted about whether they really wanted to see her little head fly off her neck. The boy calmly noted that if they wanted to sell the girl, they couldn't kill her. One of the robbers shouted that she was in their hands, to which the future heroes of Olympus replied that they didn't know her very well. Theseus whispered to the golden maiden a question about whether she really wouldn't save her lover, to which she replied that she would not act without his permission. The man, bewildered, hinted to Belita that the situation was becoming very dangerous. So, Hephaestus decided to ask the hostage directly if she needed his help. Reucales confirmed in a low voice, after which the golden maiden began to attack. After the young goddess of resurrection's answer, only a few seconds passed, and Belita was already next to the robbers. She quickly grabbed the guy who was holding her lover hostage by the neck. The next second, the golden maiden cut off the heads of everyone who attacked her mistress. Having been stained with blood, the girl said that when an attraction to the gods arises, the pantheon knows these thoughts. The robbers often thought about raping the women they captured. Once they captured a woman married with a child. The vile people would have fun with her and then hand her over to slave traders. Or worse, they would kill and burn her. Seeing this image in the pantheon of the gods, the daughter of Hades concluded that these people were dirty to the bone. The gods could easily kill a person. For example, Zeus, without even crushing a lightning bolt, could incinerate a person with heat alone. For a goddess with the power of resurrection, killing a person is like slightly snapping a finger. Therefore, now the surviving robbers died silently suffocated by her magic. Finally seeing her power, Hercules whistled in surprise, recognizing her as a goddess. Theseus had seen many deaths in the war, but this was the first time he saw many people die from a single gesture. Without death, there is no resurrection. Therefore, for Reucales, death was something common, so much so that even a hero like him trembled with fear. The man, paralyzed by fear, asked her if this was a hereditary skill. The young goddess told him that it was like Zeus's lightning, because she didn't always use it. Otherwise, the order would be disturbed. The girl said that the death of this gang and God's punishment would not change anything. Hercules noticed them moving away from the battlefield and asked if they really wanted to escape the murder scene. Reucales said she didn't want to meet Thanatos because the angel of death would come for the dead, and he would quickly understand that it was her doing. Then she smiled sweetly and happily said that she didn't want to return to the underworld yet and that she liked this adventure. The future heroes of Olympus, parodying her, also smiled widely and cheerfully announced that she didn't like it. They started fighting again, and Theseus and Belita moved on. After a couple of steps, they announced that they had finally reached the gate, thanks to which the fight ended. The deadly goddess of resurrection and the cursed hero, Hercules, will soon cause the disappearance of an entire kingdom. The girl grabbed him tightly by the neck, and when he asked her to let him go, she replied negatively. Hercules' mother is the former Mycenaean queen, the eldest daughter of Electrion. His father is a Mycenaean general, so Hercules himself was with the son of the royal family. When Reucales approached the gate, she enthusiastically noted that Mycenae had elegant walls like a fortress. The golden maiden said that they didn't even want to break those things, and Theseus told them that, unlike the underground kingdom, this fortress was very small. For the daughter of Hades, even the underworld palace was just another tower. Hercules suggested that they follow him if they didn't want to run into the stone lions. The Mycenaean doorman greeted him with feigned joy and asked his hero what had brought him back. The guards notified the townspeople that the main bully had returned like a lightning bolt from the sky. Hercules angrily asked if he really needed a reason to come to this place. The doorman trembled and said that it was an honor for them that he had taken the time to visit their palace. Theseus explained to the young goddess that this man was responsible for the Lion Gate, but she only thought that he looked like a mouse. The future hero of Olympus said that following the instructions of the goddess Hera, he needed to get to Turin's, after which he ordered the doorman to find him the way there. Then he added that they also planned to enter the capital, and that the poor man should prepare everything in advance. The guardian of the Lion Gate could not refuse, but asked what to do with those who came with him. Hercules quickly replied that those were his companions, and that they would get along well, to which the angry young goddess asked what they meant. The doorman prepared a carriage for them that took the 4 of them and dragged Cerberus behind. But Reucales listened to Theseus's stories. The man told her that in the end, the Lion Gate became the standard of an impregnable fortress. Looking at the girl, he asked if she still had questions for him. Deep in his soul, he hoped that she would have no more questions, but finally he decided to ask her what kind of large stone she saw ahead. Theseus explained that it was called a tholos, a vaulted crypt where the royal family was buried, and the Mycenaean aristocracy. Hearing the last sentence, the young goddess involuntarily looked at Hercules and nodded in confirmation to Theseus's question about whether he had any questions left. Not even a minute had passed when she pointed to the future hero of Olympus and asked him if he died, he would also be buried in this place, since he was a member of the royal family. But then she remembered that the boy said he came from Thebes, but if his parents were Mycenaean, then how did he end up in Thebes? Theseus involuntarily looked away from her and clumsily reported that Hercules' parents had long been expelled from Mycenae. Reucales was inspired when she heard this answer and asked with interest if it was really due to treason. Although Hercules' mother was a Mycenaean princess, her husband, trying to catch a bull, threw a spear and accidentally struck his father-in-law, the king of Mycenae, decapitating him. After this incident, the couple was expelled from the city, and of course the young goddess had no idea about such details. Admired by the story of the future hero of Olympus, the girl asked if the doorman was not happy about Hercules' arrival. When a city has at least one hero, its status in the country increases, even though he was born in Thebes, but Mycenaean blood flowed in him. Reucales realized that this was the reason why Hercules reluctantly walked to Mycenae, and she realized how difficult his life was. Theseus added that this is why Mycenae and Thebes have a tense relationship, because the latter realized too late about Hercules, and now looks badly at the former. These two states fight daily to be granted a hero who will improve their status in the country. The girl asked with interest why Hercules should choose Mycenae, since his parents were expelled from there. Noticing the grim expression on the face of the future hero of Olympus, Theseus tried to pause the conversation, saying that children are not always so attached to their parents. Their conversations were unexpectedly interrupted by Hercules himself, rudely informing them that they had become quite noisy. Addressing Reucales, the boy asked her if she was really the goddess of resurrection, and not the goddess of asking questions. The young goddess got angry, and in response angrily asked why he had anything to do with this, since she wasn't asking him these questions. His fist was a couple of centimeters from her face, and Hercules loudly asked why the goddess herself didn't know these things. He explained that his parents abandoned him because he was a bully, a puppy without blood or tears. Then, pointing to himself, he invited her to look at his memories and find out everything for herself. The girl calmly told him that she was very lazy to do this, and especially because there was someone next to her who could tell him perfectly. In response to her question about whether goddesses really couldn't do anything, she touched his hand. After that, she looked at him furiously and said that she should have killed him along with those men. Hercules, indignant, told her that he could not raise his hand against the chosen hero. Some time later, Thanatos arrived at the scene of the massacre and could not believe that a small goddess had destroyed so many people. His informant was with him and told him that it was probably a goddess with similar powers. One hero took off his helmet and said that among the gods there were those who could reincarnate into a child. The guy said that the dead say they saw a 3-headed monster. He also added that he thought for a second that Reucales might be there, because the gang had mentioned a golden statue of a talking girl. Looking at each other, the two gods immediately realized that this was exactly the one they were looking for. The young goddess, disgusted, asked him if she had correctly understood the question of why she could not kill the hero. Without waiting for an answer, she said that the hero was born with a special purpose. If you kill an ordinary person, nothing will happen. But if the hero does not fulfill his mission, the thread of fate can become entangled. The girl calmly said that all this was invented by the Moirai, along with Zeus. Theseus asked if he fit the definition of a hero, to which she replied affirmatively, and added that he was an Athenian hero. The man involuntarily thought that he did not fear death at the hands of the goddess, and the daughter of Hades wondered if she really looked like someone who could kill him. The carriage finally arrived at the capital of Mycenae, and many servants greeted them. Seeing the four travelers, absolutely all the servants thought they looked very suspicious. The butler offered to find them accommodation for the night, after which he led them down the palace hallway. The girl reasoned that, although they were going to Turin's, they were receiving good help in Mycenae. Theseus reported that this treatment was due to the ruler of Turin's and Mycenae. Two regions were simultaneously ruled by one man. He lived in Turin's, but was already heading towards them. The man said he was very sorry he couldn't go to Turin's together, to which the young goddess remembered that he was the king of Athens. Reucales reminded him that the previous king of Athens, Pirithous, remained in the underworld. Theseus shamefully noted that more time had passed than he thought, so he needed to return to Athens as soon as possible. The girl laughed and asked him to tell her how to kill the Minotaur. Two maids grabbed her from behind and told her they would take her for water treatments. But the daughter of Hades resisted with all her might and said she didn't need help washing. After they announced that a gold body massage had been prepared for her, she immediately changed her mind. Observing all this, Hercules still couldn't understand why goddesses loved gold so much. The butler approached him, apologized, and shamefully told him that they could not take Cerberus to Turin's. The man said that all the people refused this job, and that the carriage simply broke under such weight. Theseus asked if his friend had ordered the royal family to build a carriage. The guy irritably replied that they would have walked faster if his saliva hadn't been poisonous. After a while, he turned his gaze to the street, where he saw the young goddess walking through the market. Theseus explained that she said she didn't want to sit in a room at all, and that she was interested in looking at different people. Hercules was amazed by the goddess of resurrection Reucales, who was unlike other gods. He vividly remembered how his own mother cursed Zeus for choosing her. In his opinion, all existing gods perceived people as ants. But the daughter of Hades from the underworld, unlike other gods, even with such high self-esteem, looks at everything through the eyes of a curious child. Hercules suddenly remembered her words that she was not ready to return to the underworld because she enjoyed this adventure too much. The future hero of Olympus thought that she had said in the carriage that she could not kill him, but that she could easily seriously injure him. Theseus noticed a strange expression on his face, so he asked him what was wrong, to which his friend replied that he was just thinking. Then he pointed his finger towards the market and said that she was talking to suspicious people. The merchant showed her those same fake Hermes shoes, and the young goddess sincerely believed that her friend was now really walking barefoot. Theseus looked at her uneasily and asked if this was an obvious deception, to which the boy replied that he was too curious. The man ran to the market, shouting that they needed to stop her urgently. Hercules smiled sincerely for the first time and said that she was indeed an interesting goddess. That same night, two gods invaded the bedroom of the future hero of Olympus, jealously searching for the princess of the underworld. Oneirus passed his hand over the sleeping hero and said that he was deeply asleep. Bringing his hand a little closer, the god noticed that the guy looked like he had just come out of the forest. Before he had time to finish this sentence, Hercules turned towards his hand, which is why Oneirus' heart practically stopped. And the god of death noticed that the guy was definitely stronger than an ordinary person. And then he turned to the three-headed dog, wagging its tail, and added that he was able to drag Cerberus to him. The god of dreams said that Hercules really looked like someone who would carry out Hera's orders. Carefully examining the sleeping man, he said that many said that this man hit Poseidon and Helios with his arrows, to which Thanatos advised him not to talk nonsense. Oneirus quickly remembered why they had come, touched Hercules' nose tip, and said that they should start with the punishment for kidnapping the little goddess. First, he decided to see what the future hero of Olympus was dreaming of, but he did not expect to see many women thirsty for entertainment in his dream. All the girls were perfect and offered a variety of pastimes. Unable to resist the influx of feminine energy, one hero left his dream and hit the sleeping man with all his might. It was predicted long ago that the son of Zeus and an earthly woman would one day conquer Olympus. Therefore, the supreme god chose a human girl and made her his husband, taking his place, thus becoming pregnant with Hercules. The parents were very scared, but they raised the child as predicted. Over time, the child grew up and acquired unprecedented strength, and using his half-god abilities. Half human, he quickly became the greatest hero. All of Olympus was satisfied with this, and even deeply moved. But the gods did not think about people at all. In the Mycenaean palace, it was said that parents should give their lives for the sake of their son. That was the virtue of a father, an unquestionable promise of love. Once, the teacher explained to the sleeping Hercules that every Mycenaean should know this phrase. He woke up the sleeping child and asked if he had accurately completed the information he gave. Yawning, the child replied negatively, to which his teacher asked if he couldn't pretend to be studying. Seeing his mother at the door, Hercules immediately jumped up from his desk and went towards her. Hugging her son, the woman asked him if he listened well to his teacher, because she was worried that the child was being cunning. The chaste and elegant woman Alcmena was more beautiful and wiser than all other women. Within the fortress walls, everyone spoke so highly of her that she even received Zeus's favor. When Alcmena passed by, people whispered so that everything could be heard perfectly. Addressing her son, the woman told him not to let himself be broken in any situation. Faced with an unbreakable mask, people quickly lose interest and fall silent. She was always honest with people until the dark and deep night came. After every day, she tried to strangle her son. Deep down, she believed that he was to blame for all her misfortunes. His mother shouted that he should have been born the son of a goddess, and she didn't understand at all why she was suddenly chosen. She cried and shouted about why the gods needed to use the womb of a poor girl. And the woman's grip was weak, so if Hercules wanted to, he could easily stop her. The boy knew that she would never give up, so he simply waited for dawn. And the woman bitterly asked him to kill her. While washing in the bath the next day, she kept repeating in her head her words that he was born because she had been deceived. Even when morning came, Hercules continued to hear the woman's screams in his head that he was born at the cost of everything she had. As the maids washed him, going over every scar, the boy remembered what object he received. One of the maids said that there were rumors that all these scars were inflicted on him by the goddess Hera, and added that his mother must have been very worried about him. No one could even think that her son was being tortured by his own mother, and he thought that it was much cooler to be known, not as a hero raised by the torture of his parents, but as a hero who grew up in divine trials. Deep down, Hercules hoped that someday all the servants would know that Alcmena was going crazy. Periodically, his mother locked him in a closet with a chain and lock and gave him no food. The only thing left for him were the live mice that ran to him. But even then, he thought that the supreme god really didn't know that everything would happen exactly like this. Several days passed, and his mother came to look for him again and asked him if everything was all right with him. The boy heard that Mycenaean parents would not spare their lives for the sake of their children. But until the end, he could not understand the meaning of these words. As time passed, when Hercules grew up, he decided to go on a journey on his own. The phrase his teacher said about his parents still spun in his head, but he decided for himself that it was time to say goodbye to this oppressive place. In the morning, he told no one anything and set off on his journey, but Alcmena somehow found out. Standing at the castle gate, the woman asked him with disgust if he was leaving without saying goodbye. The boy did not expect to see her at all, so he was a little confused and did not immediately understand what she was asking him. For the first time in a long time, his mother was calm and said that she did not want to give birth to him for a second. She added that she could do nothing more than follow his destiny to become a hero, and hers to give birth to him. All her life, Alcmena hated the unfortunate fate of herself and her hero son. In their last meeting, the woman told him that since this was destiny, he must become a hero. She asked him not to bow to anyone and to become a hero before whom even the gods would bow. His mother's last words were farewell words in which she asked him not to become like her. The people he met on the road, openly, did not understand how he could show hatred towards the gods. Many sighed looking at Hercules, who defied the gods themselves, but the guy did not stop, and continued his path, which he considered correct, not knowing that the tragedy had already begun. Over time, changes began in the life of the son of Zeus. After a while, he was able to start a family. His wife asked him not to get so angry with people, because they can do nothing. Because for them, the gods are absolute creatures. Hugging his wife, he often asked her why people do not understand that he is giving his life to some gods. It was as if troubles were waiting for the moment when Hercules lost vigilance behind the veil of infinite happiness. It was as if someone whispered in his ear to kill everyone, even his own family. It was the goddess Hera asking the hated child if he heard what she was telling him. She sent him madness, so he could not have a family, which will continue until Hercules destroys all his loved ones. And when he comes to his senses, it will be too late and everyone will be dead. There was something like a divine compulsion in this, fulfilling the hero's destiny. The goddess knew that the future hero of Olympus would not be frightened by the threat of physical suffering. Therefore, she captured his mind and forced him to kill his loved ones. And Zeus turned a blind eye to this. His friend was the first to see the sad image of his family and hurried to help. Theseus found him cursing everything and everyone around him, including these unfortunate trials. Many said that heroes are born, but Hercules felt that his destiny changed according to the whims of the gods. So now he held the god of sleep by the neck and told him that he could not stand having his head stuck in. One arrow became noticeably blue in his hands, but could not make any sound. He only groaned quietly. The embittered future hero of Olympus tightened his grip on his thin neck even more. Taking him away, he explained that he would not tolerate this, especially if that someone was a god. The day the young goddess confronted the robbers, the full power of her power was revealed for the first time. Hercules realized that she was still a deity, and remembered that although many said that gods were self-sufficient, they still spun people as they wished and forced them to bow before themselves. Suddenly, he saw that the girl was sitting near the rock, so he asked her what she was doing. Approaching her, he called Rebirth and asked what she was doing. The daughter of Ade pointed to the children sitting on the ground and said she was thinking what to do with them. Theseus decided that perhaps these people were goods from the robbers she had killed so cruelly. One of the children shouted that he was going to kill them, to do it quickly. The future heroes of Olympus believed that this baby should be exactly like the other gods. The young goddess told the frightened children that they should not say such words. Smiling sincerely at them, she happily told them that she had no desire to take their lives. Hercules looked at her with interest, and the thought that she was not like the other gods took hold of his soul. Now Rebirth slept peacefully in her room and had a sweet and deep sleep. In her dream, she was surrounded by many beautiful boys who were willing to make any sacrifice for her. One of them leaned towards her so that their lips would meet in a sweet and tender kiss. Looking closer at the boy, she discovered that Hercules was standing in front of her and asking her if she liked him. He, like the previous boy, began to approach her to merge with her in a passionate kiss. Due to this persistent behavior, the girl screamed loudly in her sleep and immediately woke up. The golden maiden, lying nearby in her sleeping bag, also woke up and looked mysteriously at her mistress. Belita sat up and asked what was wrong that the young goddess screamed so loudly. The girl was sweating cold and only muttered about how this idiot with muscles was stuck in her head. Seeing a table and a pillow fly past the window, she was even more surprised, not understanding what was happening. At the strange sound, her friend Theseus was already running towards Hercules' room. He also didn't understand what had happened, but hoped that nothing bad had happened. In the hallway, he suddenly saw the young goddess of resurrection running in the opposite direction. She collided with him and fell to the ground, but Theseus noticed that she looked very cheerful. The girl asked if it was really that noticeable, and then added that it had been a long time since she heard sounds of fighting. The three headed to the side of the future hero of Olympus's room to understand what had happened. Theseus noticed that, judging by the sounds, someone suspicious was entering the palace towards the forest, so he advised her to stay behind him. Hercules smiled happily and asked him if he really had a suspect. The man said he didn't know a single person who would want to harm Hercules. Hearing this, the daughter of Hades ran as fast as she could towards the strange sounds, saying that it was probably just a thief. As they approached, they saw a huge hole in the wall, and the girl felt a strange sensation. Looking inside, the three saw Hercules beating the god of death Thanatos. Hercules could not move from the image she saw of how the gods she knew were beat and thrown on the floor. After a while, the defeated Thanatos and Oneros were able to regain consciousness, and now they were sitting in front of the future hero of Olympus. The girl asked Batida if they were really the main characters of this stand. Then, furiously, she asked what the two of them had forgotten in the realm of people that they had business here. Thanatos clenched his fist in anger and told her that she had escaped the underworld without explanation, and dared to ask them what they had forgotten here. Having measured his anger, the god of death mockingly said that they were carrying out orders from their father. The young goddess could not believe what she heard. The god of the underworld himself had given the order to find her. Thanatos asked her if she really thought that everything would end with a fair punishment. He told her that the carrier received a severe punishment of 1 year, being chained. The girl completely sank when she heard about her friend Karen, and the god of death asked her if she felt the weight of responsibility. When Eros entered the dialogue and asked her if she really thought the human world was safe. He asked if she knew how Persephone ended up in the underworld, and if she imagined how dangerous it was for the goddess to stay alone. Theseus and Belida did not dare to interfere in their conversation, so they watched everything silently from the side. The young goddess, embarrassed, apologized to them and said that she had not thought about the consequences at all. Thanatos hit her hard on the head and then told her to prepare to return. The girls did not like his proposal at all, so she asked again. When Eros calmly explained that it was time for her to return to her father in the underworld. In the underworld, she had everything. It was such a perfect world that she couldn't get enough of anything. Roucales knew very well that one day she would need to escape from there, to the immensely fragile, constantly changing, and imperfect world of people. The young goddess remembered how in the market she bought flowers she had never seen in the underworld before. She brought the bouquet to her nose to smell the deep aroma of each flower. That's why she explained to the two gods that she intended to stay in this world. The girl calmly said that she wanted to learn much more about this interesting place. When Eros became very worried and trembled, and his companion turned blacker than a cloud. But Roucales reminded them that she was the goddess of resurrection. Then she asked them how she could live knowing only about the dead, because new people would constantly come to the afterlife. But she couldn't understand them without visiting their world. The god of dreams did not believe that she was taking on her duties as a goddess with such responsibility. He told her how the god of the underworld was worried about her and was waiting for her return. Thanatos remembered seeing the dead, while his informant explained to him that they all died at the hands of Hercules. He added that the guy is the son of Zeus, and in terms of the number of murders, ranks second after Dionysus. That same night, he went to the mysterious future hero of Olympus, but found him in bed with a girl. Seeing the scene of love, the god of death blushed a little, and his companion became worried. Then he broke the silence by asking if this guy really killed hundreds of girls, whether out of madness or nature. Even gods do not disdain speculation, obscene tone, and impudence, so they hurried to leave. When Hercules hit the god of death in his room, he said that the god of death was incapable of anything, after which, angrily, he asked how much this much-vaunted underground kingdom was worth. Now Thanatos told the young goddess that at first she acted as if she wanted to stay in the underworld forever. But in reality, in Olympus, she chose the upper world. The girl tried to justify herself, but he didn't want to listen to her and only said that he wouldn't tell her anything, because she wouldn't listen to him anyway. Climbing onto the windowsill, the god of death told her to act only as she wished. The young goddess tried to stop him, but he no longer listened to her, but became deeply immersed in his thoughts. Finally, he turned around and said that he was going to work, because he couldn't always follow her. His daughter Ade only had time to wave goodbye when her friend disappeared through the window. Raka and Seoneros watched as she flew further into the darkness of the night. The god of dreams placed his hand on her shoulder and noted that his companion had quite a bad temper. Then he added that she shouldn't worry about anything, because Thanatos was just very worried about her. When Eros said that he was right, because if the goddess of resurrection does not know life and only sees death, why should she be right? The god of dreams calmly informed her that this was probably a good opportunity for her. Roucales sadly commented that she would like to remain small forever, and her friend mockingly replied that she hadn't changed in this matter. He told her that sooner or later she would have to grow up. That was a fact. When Eros kindly explained to her that with age come new pains. That was what worried everyone. To his words, the young goddess replied that no one had ever died from arthritis. But he told her that he didn't mean physical pain at all. Pointing to her heart, the god of dreams said that he meant the inner pain that everyone carries within themselves. The girl noticed that Eros agreed with this, but one Eros explained that it was Psyche who actually went through Aphrodite's trial. Then he asked a completely logical question. Why did the god Eros experience pain? The god of dreams sincerely wished that his pupil would grow up without any pain. The young goddess was embarrassed and said that she wanted this too, but she was worried about the question of why everyone was so concerned that, when she fell in love, who would change beyond recognition. Deciding to change the subject, one Eros said that he himself would discuss everything with the god of death. He understood that he could no longer stop, because if not now, he would never visit the human world again. After a while, the daughter of Hades returned to the underworld with a certain stranger. Thanatos was the first to meet her, and he could not believe that she would change so much. The girl returned as a child, in worse condition than everyone expected. Thanatos had always been full of love for her, but that night something was wrong, because her face and body looked stony, as if not the slightest drop of love remained in him. The young goddess's companions were moved to a new location after the butler inspected the huge hole in the wall. A stingy male tear flowed down his cheek, realizing that he had let them into the palace in vain. Relaxing on the bed, Hercules was glad that the two gods had finally left them. Leaving the room, Reucales noticed that peace was completely destroyed. Therefore, the butler placed the four of them in one room, which seemed too much for the goddess. Theseus tried to improve the situation and said that now she could be with Cerberus. Belida asked her mistress what she would do now, to which she replied that they would go to Turin's, and there they would think about it, but first they would receive a three-headed dog from Hercules' hands. Moving away from her, the boy asked her if she would really follow him, to which she replied that he should not worry, because she would only go with him to Turin's. The future heroes of Olympus thought that last night, the little one said, she was not going back to the underworld. He watched her as she defended her position and tried to prove to them that she was important to her. Hercules could not believe that there was a god who sincerely wanted to know about people. Delving into his memories, he clearly remembered how his mother said that he would become the greatest hero of humanity. But at the same time, she trampled his head with her shoe. The woman insisted that, unfortunately, this was his destiny and that's why she trampled him. There was no noble purpose for his birth, so now he reminded everyone how much he hated the gods. Sitting on the sofa, the future heroes of Olympus insisted that they were stubborn people, narcissistic and twisted as they wanted. The girl interrupted their diatribe, unexpectedly declaring that the speaker was completely wrong. Reucales said that the gods are really capricious, because in the underworld she met many gods, and she knew them firsthand. She realized that she had heard these same words a million times about someone completely different. Twisting her fingers, the young goddess began to list that she had heard the stray words. Narcissistic, who twists people as he wants and is forced to release his anger. Smiling smugly, she angrily noted that he reminded her a lot of Hercules himself. With these words, she made him think that he was really no different from the gods he hated. The next day, Theseus advised the young goddess that if a stranger calls her to go with him, she should not do it and should not kill or attack him. Reucales didn't listen to him at all, but angrily declared that she couldn't tell him that she would leave for Athens the next day. Belida added that they were disappointed with him and that the man tried to justify himself somehow to them. Looking at Hercules, he discreetly asked him not to fight over trifles. The girl noticed that he was worried just like his mother, to which the man replied that he was worried about those with whom they would cross paths. The young goddess looked at him mockingly and told him that it was time for him to leave, after which she sincerely thanked him for being with her all this time. Then she walked to his back, saying loudly that now she would receive payment for everything. The goddess of resurrection used her magic to completely heal his wounded rear. Hercules remembered that it was thanks to him that his friend had only half of his rear. Now Theseus could not take his hands off the weakness and tearfully thanked his savior, to which she replied that he had some rather juicy buns. The girl smiled sweetly and reminded everyone that for a long time she had said that she was the goddess of resurrection. The man cried with happiness and wholeheartedly thanked her for the complete healing of his body. Leaving in a carriage, he shouted loudly to them to come to him if they ever found themselves in Athens. During their endless lives, the gods love people and suffer their losses. But still, the only person with whom God develops a special relationship remains in the world. Hercules rudely informed him that, when Theseus built a temple in his honor, she should not be surprised if he took the form of a priest. After some time, the young goddess became indignant about whether they would really walk on foot. To which the future hero of Olympus said that they had destroyed the guest room so much that they would not be given a carriage. Looking at the map, the girl said they didn't have to go that far and decided they could get there in a day. After looking at the map, the boy explained to her that maps are drawn to a reduced scale, so the distance might seem close, but in reality, it will be completely different. Indignant with him, Rukalis didn't watch her feet at all, so she tripped over the first root sticking out of a tree. Before hitting the ground, Hercules managed to catch her, pressing her more tightly against his body. Returning her to the ground, he said he knew this could happen to her. Trying to save her lover, the golden maiden sadly said she was glad the young goddess didn't fall. Looking at her fallen friend, the girl asked her, bewildered, if she was okay, to which she replied that she wanted to rest a little. The boy paid no attention to them at all. He was bothered by the fact that this time, the young goddess seemed a little heavier to him. Involuntarily, he remembered her words about how similar she was to the gods he hated. Rukalis, of course, said she said it passionately, but these words stuck in his head. Hercules again felt a divine influence, telling him that the young goddess saw a side of him that he himself did not know. Intuition told him that he could simply move his fist, and the girl would be carried away with a single blow. An invisible spirit warned him to be careful with her, because if he was deceived by her smile and kindness, she would become his weakness. In other words, she will be a danger unlike anything he has encountered before. The obsessive thoughts were chased away by the young goddess's question about why he was suddenly looking at them, to which he ordered them to go faster. Hera's last of the 12 labors, bringing Cerberus out of the underworld and presenting him to King Eurystheus. It was finally coming to an end. Entering the palace, Hades' daughter noticed that this place was very close and seemed more expensive than Mycenae. She assumed that everyone recognized Hercules, so the guards didn't even approach them. The guards trembled and whispered about whether it was really the famous Hercules, and if he really brought Cerberus with him. Looking at them, the girl said, doomed to failure, that all this seemed a bit troublesome. Then she asked the golden maiden how many times they had heard concerns about her companion, to which Belita replied that they heard this for the 13th time. Not noticing that Hercules had stopped, the young goddess flew onto his back, shouting about why he stopped. The future heroes of Olympus did not answer her. They just severely called her petty again. After thinking for a while, she asked him, when you get Cerberus back, will you really go straight to the underworld? Rubbing her bruised forehead, the girl wondered if he really hadn't heard before what she was talking about, and she explained to him that she wanted to look around on the surface. Hercules kept moving forward, while asking her if the young goddess had thought about where she wanted to go. The boy wanted to offer to accompany her, but unfortunately, they had already approached the royal hall. Hiding behind the door, Rukalis excitedly asked if this was the king of Turins, to which her companion replied that since he was sitting on the throne, it meant he was a king. Approaching the royal throne, the young goddess saw that the king was huddled in a corner and trembling with fear. At the same time, in the underworld, Oasis, the goddess of pain and anxiety, compiled a to-do list for her pupil's return. Holding the scroll in her hands, she saw the god of death himself crawling among the bushes. Thanatos was very weak, so he asked her in syllables to call Hermes. God knows who came, healed his wounds, and bandaged his injuries well. Hermes reported that one Eros was also being treated on Olympus, so he wanted to bring him the medicine himself. But he was anticipated. The completely rewinded god of death did not delve deeply into his words. He just looked mysteriously into the distance. God knows, clung to Thanatos's wing, and pretended to ask why he was being treated so cruelly. The god of death clarified whether they should kill Hermes, to which the guy replied that he would finally recognize the ordinary Thanatos. They were watched by Oasis, who listened carefully to the words of the messenger god that he already had a stern muzzle. And when he had no face, he looked even more terrible. The wounded man thought Hercules was a complete fool, because he constantly caused some kind of trouble. Recalling it, he thought that such a big fight was too much, and this time he did much more than usual. In any case, although he was a hero, the future savior of Olympus was still a mortal man. Thanatos thought that even if he ended up in Elysium, he would end up in the underworld. Hermes at that moment was talking about how a man like Hercules could defeat the right hand of Hades. Upon learning that the messenger god had finished healing his wounds, Thanatos sincerely thanked him for his help. Hermes hurried to tell him the news that Aphrodite had been plotting something lately. He said that a couple of days ago, Eros briefly visited them in the underworld. The guy reported that he was carrying the rotten body of a man and was looking everywhere for Rukalis. Oises began to eavesdrop quite shamelessly, and Thanatos asked his doctor to repeat what he had said. At the same time, the young goddess met the king, who was hiding behind his throne, and babbled that all the tasks were completed and they could leave the throne room. In King Eurystheus's eyes, Hercules looked like a fierce and unrestrained hunter, ready to kill everything in his path. Because the task ended so quickly, the young goddess felt the futility of her journey. Now she could ride Cerberus, so she gently hugged him and told him he had done a great job. Hercules noticed that the girl was very happy with her dog, to which Velida explained that they had been close for a long time. The boy said they had been side by side throughout this journey, but the Golden Maiden said that it was Hercules who always walked beside her. She added that she hoped to see a nobler king, to which the future heroes of Olympus replied that the goddess Hera chose him because he was obedient. There was a time when he thought he could achieve everything with his own hands, not knowing that he could not take anything in these hands. The goddess of fate decided his life for him, and Hera made him spin like a faithful puppet. Hercules owned nothing, not even love, so he decided he no longer feared any divine task. As he walked through the forest, he thought that all the errands were finished, and he didn't know what he would do next. The girl seemed to read his thoughts, so she immediately asked him what he would do now. The boy looked at her in disbelief and said he wasn't thinking about anything in particular. Sitting on Cerberus, the young goddess suggested that since nothing had occurred to him, they could take a walk together. The cheerful Rukalis hovered over him, awaiting an answer to her question. But he was stunned. Just as Hercules was about to answer, he felt a golden arrow fly past him. He thought quickly and managed to intercept it before it could hit anyone. The young goddess carefully examined the arrow, knowing deep down that it belonged to Eros. But the arrow suddenly evaporated. The son of the goddess Aphrodite sat among the trees and shot the next arrow in their direction. Rukalis tried to stop the golden arrow with her magic, completely forgetting that the power of a goddess could not do this. The girl fell unconscious on her Cerberus. Hercules quickly headed towards her. Eros knew perfectly well that she would fall in love with the first person she saw after being hit by the golden arrow. Her companion reached her first, hugging her and asking if she was okay. Upon opening her eyes, Hades' daughter was looking somewhere behind Hercules, so he asked her where she was looking. Eros attacked him from behind so that the young goddess would not fall in love with him unknowingly. Having pressed Hercules to the ground, the god said he was interfering with his beloved mother's plan. The guy showed his angry teeth and said that they would attack him sneakily quite often. Then he grabbed Eros by the wing and violently plucked his feathers, saying that he had eaten people like him. The future hero of Olympus was so angry that he violently tore off an entire wing. This punishment seemed insufficient to the boy, so he punched the god in the face with all his superhuman strength. Hercules could not understand why he was trying to protect his companion from an attack like hers. He continuously hit his opponent in the face, and each time his blows became more and stronger. His bloody massacre was interrupted by a beautiful girl who got up from the ground. The Golden Maiden looked from behind with surprise at the changed body of her lover. Rukalis matured quickly. She didn't ask anyone to explain how it happened. Hercules was speechless, but still gave his opponent a powerful slap. As he moved forward, the future hero of Olympus asked if Aphrodite was really that crazy. He was angry that she could make the young goddess fall in love with the old man, because she refused to resurrect her. Ada's daughter lovingly watched her new lover move slowly. Hercules did not understand her feelings and thought that the first arrow still hit him. That's why he was so angry. He turned and asked Eros, since he considered himself his friend, why he could do this. Aphrodite's son explained that he could do nothing because he had once sworn on the river Styx, so he could not disobey his mother's words. A cheerful Rukalis walked in front of everyone, humming songs to herself, and carried in her lover's arms. Eros said that he also wanted someone to stop him from carrying out his hated task. He said that for this, he brought the old man to the underworld, where he tried to show everyone that he was plotting something. The guy sadly said that no one, not even Thanatos, on whom he counted, reacted to this. Upon hearing a familiar name, Hercules told him that the one he was counting on could not move. When he asked why, the boy mysteriously explained that it was better for him not to know. Trying to change the subject, he asked if there was any way to make her remember. Eros sadly reported that if everything were so easy, then golden arrows would not have such fame. Hercules suggested that they could simply replace love with hate, because that would be enough. Having decided to act, the future heroes of Olympus demanded a quiver with his arrows from the archer. Trying to grab what he wanted, the guy said that he had to make Reucales shoot that damned old man. Eros loudly stopped him, saying that he was also injured, so he should be very aware. Grabbing a quiver full of arrows, Aphrodite's son asked him if he also wanted to be shot with a lead arrow, and hate the daughter of Hades with all his heart. Remembering the day, his golden arrow pierced the heart of the god of the underworld. The boy said that she was not the first among the gods. Hades at that time did not understand at all what had happened to him, and why such passionate feelings erupted in him. The first person he saw was the goddess of spring Persephone, who had the imprudence to greet him. Once upon a time on Olympus, Aphrodite drank nectar with her son and told him to look at the bored face of the god of the underworld. She said she was never inspired by his visit to Olympus. So, the goddess of beauty decided to see what would happen if Hades felt love for the goddess of the earthly world. She was interested in the question of whether this would make him go out more often to visit the higher gods. Aphrodite's joke was successful, because the god of the underworld began to go out into the outside world every day. If it weren't for the golden arrow, perhaps Persephone and Hades could have gradually fallen in love for real. The lovers, even after learning that it was because of the golden arrow, finally refused to shoot the main one, because it changed love for hate. Eros asked a rhetorical question about what kind of madman would do this. He suggested that perhaps Reucales would think the same as him, and would not dare to receive a lead arrow. The man admitted that he made an oath on the river Styx, and that he could not shoot her with a lead arrow. Eros sadly said that he knew perfectly well that he was a fool, because he promised to fulfill any request from his mother. He said that since he knew Aphrodite well, he assumed that she would simply bring another old man, and order him to do the same. All this time, the underworld princess was eavesdropping on their conversation, after which she furiously pounced on the culprit of her growth. The girl looked angrily at Eros, putting into perspective what she had heard, that the same thing had happened to her father. Reucales angrily asked him if he really thought that since she fell in love, who couldn't destroy him. After her threats, she landed a couple of quite strong blows on him, which made the boy's cheeks swell even more. Sitting astride him, the girl reasoned that even a puppy picked up on the street knows what mercy is. But she couldn't understand who it was who helped Sake escape the underworld safe and sound. Eros sincerely asked for forgiveness and promised that he would definitely pay her back. Hades' daughter pressed hard on the remaining wing and said that he was obliged to pay her. She said that it wasn't even funny, that it all started with Aphrodite's banal curiosity. The girl remembered her childhood, her mother's hatred, threats, and various broken destinies. The goddess perfectly remembered how Persephone diligently tried to strangle her at every opportunity. It was an artificial love, and the child born of this love did not understand who he should hate. Reucales decided not to pay him any more attention because she suddenly saw her first love. She was overwhelmed with gratitude for still being able to discover what love suffering was. Noticing the surprise on the elder's face, she gently attacked him, telling him that he couldn't pay attention to his words. Hercules could not watch this calmly, so he separated her from her lover and asked what she was going to do next. The girl seriously said that she was going to bring the old man back. Turning to the future hero of Olympus, she asked if he hadn't heard that Eros had kidnapped him. The boy noted that this problem should be solved by the kidnapper himself, and he asked her why she was doing this. Hugging the old man, the goddess said that in this case, Eros must take Cerberus back to the underworld. Seeing the indignation on the culprit's face, she angrily and furiously asked him if he really didn't want to fulfill her request. Upon learning that the guy was ready to do this, Reucales lifted the old man again and moved on. Hercules did not stop and asked her what she would do after returning everyone to their places. The enamored girl kindly explained that she would stay with her lover and take care of him because she loved him. At that moment, the boy realized that no matter how old a person was, he could not refuse such beauty because he could not take his eyes off her. So now Hercules silently watched as she happily headed to the underworld. Suddenly, he realized that his companion hadn't even invited him to go with her. So he wished her a good trip and took the opposite direction.